But it'd be funny because it'd be funny to like us. And then if like I actually did that, and just the office manager would show up and be like, "You can't be here." I'm like, "No, it's because I'm waiting for this season Rick and Morty." Like, no, we're gonna call the cops. And nobody ever gets to enjoy the mirth. It just becomes just some weirdo kicked off the premises out in front of there, and it never becomes that delightful internet meme. It just becomes just a sad, stupid story. Speaking of which, did I tell you about leaving a meeting this week and traffic was cut off on Sunset Boulevard?
No.
What we had to do earlier, we had traffic problems because some rebel scum parked their X-Wing in the middle of Hollywood Boulevard.
What an asshole.
Wait, actual X-Wing? No.
Yeah, because they did the premiere. They had they took over the entire Hollywood Boulevard.
Oh,
and so they had an X-Wing parked in the middle of there, right? These people, why can't they get along the Empire? So I'm driving back from a meeting. It was one of those, typical Hollywood, let's talk about story ideas, some executive, whatever thing. I get in my car, I'm driving back, Sunset Boulevard. I'm kind of like, LA's cool. This is kind of neat. And then all of a sudden there's traffic backed up, right? I see police cars and a news helicopter flying overhead. I'm like, okay, this is not good. And like,
car chase.
Yeah, I didn't want to get stuck in traffic, so I make a left turn and I go up to the hills. I go around it. I'm like, all right, I just beat this. And then my map is telling me, like, now go right. I go right, and it puts me right back on Sunset Boulevard, right in the middle of whatever it was. Which is like, great. I see about 30 people off to the side with their cameras out taking photos. More police. There's fire trucks. Everything's blocked off. I'm like, this looks like a terrorist situation or something horrible, like a bank robber's got. And then I see this bus parked at sort of an odd angle. And I'm talking to my dad on the phone, by the way. I'm like, yeah, I know what's going on here. Like, and he starts talking about, like, Auburn made it into the sugar. I'm like, Dad, shut up. I see what's going on now. What? There's a naked dude strutting back and forth on top of the bus like it's a catwalk, blowing kisses to everybody around. Some dude, red hair, just strutting back and forth, like total meltdown kind of mode, like sashaying and stuff, and like doing like it's the RuPaul Drag Race kind of thing.
Wow. And
all I can think of in my head is, come on, you know this. Welcome to Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
What's your dream?
So, where was that?
Hey, man, I'm ready to go whenever you guys say.
Yeah, let's rock.
Yeah, let's do it. Going over here. All right. Well, take it away in 3, 2.
Welcome to the Weird Things Podcast. I'm Ed, your main, joined by Brian Brushwood.
Hello, you beautiful people.
Justin Robert Young.
Hi, it's me, Justin Robert Young.
All right, gentlemen. First up, let's talk about the 800-pound tauntaun in the room. We are not going to make this show about Rogue One. We already know that there's been reviews about Rogue One, and there's people talking about Rogue One. We're not going to address Rogue One. This is going to be a totally Rogue One free episode. Okay?
Yeah. All right.
So we're not going to talk about any of those reviews, right? We're not going to talk about how glowing they are.
We're still not going to talk about the fact that this is essentially a movie embodiment of everything I loved about the expanded universe. Like, all that has come to roost, and it's in many ways the first Star Wars novel movie ever created.
We're not going to talk about the fact that I'm excited for a Star Wars movie and a Spider-Man reboot, proving conclusively that I never learned lessons.
We're not going to talk about Rogue One. That's the whole point, okay? We're just going to be Rogue One free because you're going to get a lot of Rogue One talk, and we want to create this sort of a safe space from that, okay?
Yeah.
So instead, let's talk about all the technology in Star Wars that could be true and may happen sooner than we think.
Right on. There was a I want to say a 99% invisible about it. I forgot the name for it. Maybe Bryce will have magic wizard powers. But the practice of making up excuses for things that don't make sense in science fiction movies, things that seem to contradict it. And the example they talked about is, the dogfight scene in the original Star Wars, where you got TIE fighters swinging all around. And of course, they're making all this sound in space, right? Wah, wah. And the workaround, the kludge to fix it was, it's like, well, if you were targeting it would probably be helpful to know relative positions to you of where these enemy aircraft are, and also to be able to identify enemy aircraft by signature sounds. So it would make sense that part of the weapon systems on the Millennium Falcon would include an array of speakers that would simulate with vectors of where different ships are, and that each individual ship by its class would have a distinct sound that would come across as sounds.
That's what I'm talking about. Although I have a better theory.
Oh yeah, what's that?
Well, remember they've got force fields, right? They've got shields.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and one of the ways you would do a shield, you actually would do a shield, is you would use some sort of magnetic field to contain like a gas or a plasma around you, right? And actually, plasma arrow shields are a real thing that NASA's been working on for how to do re-entry into like a planetary atmosphere. Instead of having to have a bunch of heat shields, you would use this big plasma arrow shield that would absorb that. But you can also use that in space to absorb like certain wavelengths of energy depending on the gas. So if you got this big bubble that's your shield, what happens when something moves through this gas?
Well, it would explode and make sounds, or
make sounds.
Yeah,
you get sounds.
You know, that would also explain why Han Solo gets out to make repairs. They're sitting on an asteroid that happens to be, you know, spoiler alert, they're inside the belly of a giant space worm. But he just gets out with nothing but a little thing over his mask. If there was constant, persistent plasma shields, there would be a bubble of atmosphere around the Millennium Falcon.
See what I'm saying? It's easy to say no, it can't be done. The real test is to try to figure out how it can be possible.
Yeah, I mean, like you could just take milk and add blue food coloring to it. Boom, blue milk.
That's all right. Now that's just crazy,
no,
Justin.
You can do that. I mean, listen, it's a miracle, a Star Wars miracle in your house right now, folks. That's what the Weird Things podcast gives you.
Do you know about the stain, the blue milk stain on the floor of the actual kitchen in where they shot the original scene?
Oh, no. Really?
So, funny fact is that if you were to go visit, it's like some hotel or whatever in Tunisia. If you go there and you look on the floor, you'll actually see a blue stain on there because some fan decided it would be great to bring milk and blue food dye there and go do that and to drink blue milk, and actually ended up staining the floor.
Oh, so it was just some fan. It wasn't like the production team from back in the day. I would love to
think.
No,
it was a fan who then later on went to direct Rogue One.
No kidding!
Wow.
Yep, Gareth Edwards. He and his girlfriend went to go visit the location. This is before he was even gonna be doing the movie. You know, he said, "How cool would it be to drink blue milk?" And he's got his blue food. Oh yeah. Oh God, I got it everywhere. I'm so excited.
That's amazing.
Oh, they'll never let me direct a Star Wars movie now.
So, another workaround idea, like in real life. And this is not my idea, but it was a suggestion in Michio Kaku's Science of the Impossible, I think. He took the idea of telekinesis, the ability to move objects with your mind, and instead, you know, picture a room where, whether by magnetic fields or by basically, you can move objects in the room, and then separate from that, imagine brain scanning technology, where you can know when you know, we already have quadriplegics who are able to move a cursor just by thinking about moving. So it's not too far a step. You know, I guess a rudimentary version we could do right now would be if you think about different objects in the room, maybe like pictures falling off the walls or whatever, and then that happens as you think about it.
No disrespect to him, but I think his explanations are the lamest ones I've ever heard, and they're much better ones.
Okay,
and you're right.
I'm sorry. I'll start here. Let me give you the dance floor, Maestro. Take it away.
I think you're right. If you want to do that now, but I mean, like, you know, we talk about nanobots and stuff like that, and I don't think any of us was really happy when we heard the term midichlorians, because in Star Wars we're kind of like, no, we like the kind of magic. We don't need to have science. But if you wanted to have that, like nanobots and stuff, I mean, when we're reading like Peter F. Hamilton books and stuff, there's stuff in there that's so much cooler and stuff that you could have, you know, little nanobots and stuff moving things, you know, that are like, that's the Force.
Well, so what do you think, Andrew, is in Star Wars that is close for us to replicate on some level?
So I put the Force for the last thing we should discuss, because but I do agree that, like, if you wanted to understand how it could be done now, absolutely, yeah. Like, you could say, like, well, we could create that effect, you know, with this rigged room and stuff and all that, but how do we get to the closer? So I thought let's talk first. Let's talk low-hanging fruit, robots.
Okay.
What do you guys think?
They're not possible. They'll never happen.
All right. Next topic. Let's move right on.
No. Well, so one of the most curious things to me is why would you imbue robots with personality? Like, that's one of the things that doesn't make sense, right? It's like you want them to do things and do it right the first time. And it seems like all of them should be exactly identical and they should all be interconnected. But if I was going to try to figure it out, we know from Matt Ridley's book, the Theory of Everything, is that what it is? Or The Evolution of Everything, that he talks about how ideas essentially mate and have sex with each other and create new ideas. So in this incredibly diverse galaxy, I could imagine a world where there's a benefit to make sure no two robots are exactly the same. Because as a result, then whatever situation or difficulties a planet faces, they're going to have one or two uniquely qualified robots to help do that. Does that make sense? So in other words, like from an evolutionary standpoint, cloning is a very poor strategy, or it's good to get the numbers, but it's very, very bad because a disease vector could take everything out. And if that one thing is ill adapted for its environment, it gets totally, destroyed. Whereas a highly heterogeneous collection of organisms is robust. And so maybe in this world where you have robot servants that all are doing jobs, is essentially slavery, I guess, but it seems like maybe there would be a benefit in the large scale to make sure no two of them were the same.
Yeah, I think that's, you talk about like with the astromechs, like R2-D2 and BB-8, and how they bond with the pilots, not unlike police dogs do. And police dogs have their own personalities, their own takes, and that becomes, it's their co-pilot. And you're going to want to have some bits of personality there if you're out there on this long mission, fighting the Empire, et cetera. And so, we do get to the fact that, if you dig down into it, they are kind of slaves. But technology-wise, Justin, would you think that, we're probably closer than ever to?
Well, I think the question with droids as we see them in Star Wars is less, can we get them to look and feel like they did in the movie or do in the movies, and kind of more, do we need them to do that? Are there smarter ways to solve these problems in more cheaper, replaceable, smaller solutions than just having an actual other humanoid, a shaped figure walking around and doing things with hands?
So you're saying we won't make those things? We're not close to being able to do that?
No. I don't know. It seems like we're fairly close. I mean, okay. We have enough of AI built into things now that we interact with it on a fairly regular basis. I mean, if there's in I think all of our homes, we yell at the A word that, for the Amazon Echo to shut up. We talk to Siri all the time. It'd just be a matter of making those kind of walk around machines cheap enough that people would want to buy them.
Well, how crazy or how weird is it? This is what's fascinating now, because when I read Harry Potter, I always thought the thing about Harry Potter that is disturbing. The thing about Harry Potter was this is a lot like a post-singularity civilization would be with Potter, like kids having magic spells and stuff. Now there is one word that the three of us will not say because we will invoke a genie.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and people will get upset, and I don't blame them because they might be playing us on that thing, and people get upset when you say that word followed by please buy 50 rolls of toilet paper.
So let me propose a counterpoint, because you're right. It does seem like maybe lazy writing, or like, oh, of course the robots are going to be human shaped and have human personalities or whatever. But I would say that if you want, if what you want is a highly versatile individual, then number one, it should have human personality, and that's a natural language interface with other humans, which is who it's working for. But more importantly, I think there's a reason humans kind of won the evolution game, and I think part of it is our shape. And a dog will never ever be able to get evolved to a point where it has can create space travel because it just simply cannot manipulate the pieces to do this. Maybe a tentacled something, but there's an advantage to tell me, am I remembering this correctly? No animal on Earth can run farther than a human. Like there are plenty that could go faster, but none have the distance running capability of humans. And that's largely because of our bipedal design. So it makes sense that there's an energy efficiency that would bring us to human-shaped robots.
Yeah, it's like there's something like that. Like we can out marathon horses. Not maybe you, Brian, not me. Can out marathon horses and stuff and do that, But then there is certainly a versatility, and that makes sense too. Like what I love about the Star Wars universe is that like some things are really old, some things are new. You're not going to be wanting to rely too much on cloud-based computing and stuff. Like what's great about when you go back and watch Star Wars, by the way, is this is 1977, a movie that was largely shot in 1975, and R2-D2 is hacking into the Death Star mainframe computer system. He's hacking the system, cracking it, and doing all that. And I'm like, man, it's like the first movie I ever can recall there was hacking and stuff in there.
Yeah, well, and similar, around that same time, Westworld was one of the first movies before there was even words for computer viruses. It talked about the idea of a glitch that spread from one robot to the next.
And computers designing computers. They said it's so complicated. How could this happen? We don't even know how it works. Computers are designing computers, which is brilliant. So I could say we're going to say that, if we wanted to have those sort of robots and stuff, we're going to end up with those kinds of robots. That does not seem that far-fetched at all, right?
Sure. Yeah. But in the spirit of justifying, because this is a fun game, how would you justify, or can any of us justify some of the more ridiculous shapes for the robots, like that one the one that looks like a refrigerator with legs plopping forward?
Well, we don't know what environment it's supposed to work in. Is this something that's walking on the exterior of a giant spaceship designed to do something? Is it carrying a lot of data? Like one of the things that Amazon has this new service where if you want to export your data to the cloud, they'll actually park like a tractor trailer truck in front of your server facility, and you transfer your data there because that's faster than trying to have a fast internet connection.
Wow.
So I mean, it could be a mobile power unit. I mean, obviously we know, they just sort of made that stuff up. But the fun part is just use your brain to say, how could this be true? What could you do?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, if you look at what, before he gets waylaid by this wild, wizard boy and his crazy journey, like the idea of C-3PO as just a diplomat robot, doesn't seem far-fetched. Like, if you wanted, if these things were just gaudy, expensive ways that you could have a presence, discuss things with other people and translate, like, you could certainly see in the age of Donald Trump, a very, very highly priced gold robot, seems fully plausible in the highest levels.
If you're going to go to some remote backwater civilization and go talk to the local king or something like that, to have your emissary look like him instead of holding, Google Now in front of their face.
Exactly. Yeah. I think like there's part of it's like, okay, if you were to have it in the White House, maybe an AI that didn't need a physical form kind of makes sense. But certainly, to take it out and talk to people and demonstrate power and wealth and translate, like that seems legit to me.
The White House droid, that's a very interesting idea. All right, let's move right along. Holograms. So when Star Wars first came out and you saw Princess Leia being projected, there was a lot of, if you read a lot of like science fiction, science stuff back in the day, a lot of people who loved hard science fiction actually tore Star Wars apart because like, this is a hard science. You can't have, holograms project in the middle of the air. But
whoopsie. Yeah, man, this one's an easy one, a slam dunk for our friend Jaime, who put together a successfully funded Kickstarter for the Holovect, which works by magic. It works by the Force, as best I can tell. But
we've been seeing some cool stuff, including our buddy Jaime, who's working on stuff that uses you can use sound waves, you can use particulates, vapor, things like that. You can project holograms in the middle. We're not talking about the Tupac thing that's just on a scrim. We're talking about actual volumetric stuff, and there's several really cool things going into that. And Jaime's made one that's from without the resources of a major, huge corporation kind of thing. But there's also been like the Firefly voxel system, some really cool things in this area. So, and this is where it starts from. What happens when you start putting hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars of research into developing specialty chips and other things like that? is that you go from, and that look, we're looking at some images right now of the system, the high and it's awesome. You're watching this cube float in the middle of the air, and once you're able to make these things more powerful, you're going to have, Princess Leia saying, "Help me, Obi-Wan." And that was the thing that a lot of people dismissed.
This is, really, this I think is more a question about where it fits in our life rather than whether or not it will continue to progress from where it is now.
Okay, what would you use it for?
I mean, the initial, I think the initial thought for it is to do, if you want to be kind of productive with it, to have some kind of interactive sort of, for blueprints or like basically to do the stuff that we find really cool in VR now without the VR. Like I think
that's interesting. So like, let's say you're prototyping something, it's going to take 2 hours to print on your 3D printer, and you just want to get an idea if the mock-up is correct or a preview of how it looks. You could put on the goggles and walk around and say, yeah, that looks right. But this, as for a simple low fidelity preview that's instantly on, that everyone in the boardroom can glimpse, this probably would be the method to beat.
Well, let's go further out. Let's imagine a really, really high def version of this, okay? And I would say, like, remember when Microsoft showed us the HoloLens, and they showed us that demo of that, and we're watching them play Minecraft on the middle of the table. And a cool thing that we had in, by the way, Star Wars, actually, I think it appeared first in Future World, though, was the idea of like playing like this 3-dimensional chess, right? But if you say, like, we've seen these examples now of augmented reality Minecraft.
Yeah.
So what happens when you can scale these holographic projectors up and have them around your house?
That I think is just kind of a game changer, and I think you saw it a lot in, oh man, what was the movie Cloud Atlas? That the idea that like everyone will live in closets that will look like mansions because you can scale the difference of like what all your everything around you kind of looks like at all times.
I absolutely believe that, man. I can't see any way for that not to be one of the most popular Cosmopolitan, because think about it, you're close to everywhere instantly. You get the feeling of having a big fancy house, but you're 3 steps to anywhere once you step outside.
I still think we'll continue to expand in every possible dimension, but plus we'll also add that too.
Yeah, I don't necessarily. I think that is kind of tied more into the idea that we will continue to run out of space, which I think is been one of the more consistently overblown kind of things. And
no. And by the way, I'm not saying that we'll do it out of necessity. We'll do it because that's what we want. I mean, there's a reason all of humanity is flocking to city centers and a more honeycomb-like existence, is because we love being near other humans and we love convenience and choice. And this would be a way to maximize it. And I can totally envision people deciding, well, I could spend $500,000 on an actual mansion, or $50,000 a year for a virtual mansion or $50,000 total for a virtual mansion is the way to go.
Well, and even now, you're looking at the whole tiny home craze, right? And it stands to reason that this kind of projection would certainly just be the next step there, right?
Mm-hmm. So we could see certainly the applications there, and it could be a combination, like of volumetric holograms. I think we're going to probably see pretty soon, the next couple of years, just video, like, as we have LED video projectors that have gotten cheaper and they last so much longer, is just putting them in a couple corners of your house and to start throwing images around the walls and things like that, without even before we go to 3D, but just to be able to do that alone could really. We're already doing that with our hue, like our color lighting. Yeah. And then the next step up there is just to start using projection bulbs and stuff like that, and to start doing projection mapping, in our own homes.
Well, and setting up these cues that respond to, like I could totally envision in the next 5 years, let's say you replace, instead of hues, some other light that is constantly projecting a sky overhead. So it's like you're able to look up and know, even though there's no windows in your apartment or this area of the room, you know what it's going on outside. Before you even leave that, it's drizzly or it's nighttime or whatever.
Imagine being able to do this show in front of a full, or just have a wall that's projected onto, and getting rid of the idea of a screen at a wall, and we're looking at the faces of all of our lovely listeners.
Oh, that would fundamentally change things because it's hard.
How would I get into the front row?
Everyone's in the front row.
No. But,
What?
No.
Oh, with money. I look over and Bryce
you
is
get into
doing
the
this.
front row with Patreon.
Oh no.
can someone else take this plug?
You would get in the front row with patreon.com. Head on over to patreon.com/weird things and become a weird supporter. Only $1 an episode, man. You will never ever notice that on your bill. And every time you do notice it, you'll smile and think, I bought those guys a cup of coffee that they have to split 3 ways because I'm very cheap. But look at
we
this,
all
man.
got the same mouth sore because we did that.
We are so very close to a milestone. We are just $4 away from $500 an episode. We have never crossed this boundary since they rejiggered the Patreon setup and made it more accurate. If you look at us at graftreon.com, this is a big moment, man. You guys have kept us completely on the regs, and it's all because of you. Thank you.
And also, thank you so much, especially during December. We know that this is a tight time for money for so many people. The fact that our number hasn't fallen and it has in fact risen is just such an amazing testament to the support we get for this show. So thank you guys very much.
Much appreciated. All right. Let's talk land speeders and speeder bikes. I'm gonna flash back to the Michael Crichton movie Runaway, right? And I don't know if you remember in that movie, Gene Simmons was the bad guy. There was this situation where this house, some robot, a domestic robot, got hold of a gun and fired the gun, and the cops are outside and they don't know what to do. Like, it's too dangerous to go in there. What do we do? And they have this little device. I remember watching this as a kid. I'm thinking, I don't know if that's really probable. They had this little device, this little hovering thing that went, and it flew into the house, and it had a camera, and they could see what was going on.
That sounds like crazy talk. No
As a
way
kid,
can a
I'm
flying
like,
camera exist.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't find the things at Radio Shack to make this.
Yeah, dude, just ahead of their time. Michael Crichton, he should write books.
You know, Brian, you got a bit of a wry smile, on your face for this whole flying camera discussion. It seems like maybe you got some thoughts on it.
Not yet. What I have is trouble. I bought a used DJI Inspire 1 because we wanted to get some aerial shots for the Modern Rogue. And there was a great price on a used one. It's only been used like 9 times. Also doesn't work at all, so it's off to get repaired. So I bought a project is what I bought.
Oh no!
So we'll see.
I'm literally flying to Florida, and I have Wi-Fi, and I got a call from Brian that I can't take because I'm in the air. And then I just get a text message that says, if I shouldn't buy this drone, you're the last person to talk me out of it.
Yeah.
Your hands. Bye.
Well, and what's funny is the next person I wrote was the guy who had one. I was like, hey, you have a DJI Inspire 1. How do you like it? Should I buy one? And he goes, no, you should buy mine. And I did. And again, the price was great. We'll see about whether or not it works.
So we've seen now one of the things that made drones and quadcopters and things like that work is as battery power density is improved. You know, lithium ion has made, you could not run these things with lead acid batteries, right? But with lithium ion, we've had this improved ratio, and as we start to have better technologies like supercapacitors and technology like that, where we can get even more power out, we're going to see the lifting capabilities of that. We're going to find out that you can do, to make something float, a couple ways you can do it. You can use the big quadcopters like that. You can use a bunch of smaller ducted fans and stuff. There's another theoretical thing is if you start to make things go down to almost a microchip level, you might be able to create surfaces that just bend the air around it, either mechanically or electrically.
Wow! So basically, like a billion little flapping wings that keep it aloft.
Could like that, or look up if Bryce can pull up electric lifter, and this was one of these things UFO crazy people kind of get into, and that is how you use electrostatic wind to lift things. And you could, in theory, maybe make surfaces that use this to do that, so you have no moving parts.
Well, and all of this, we look at these kind of things and where it's like, oh, well, it's too tiny, not enough power to actually lift a human being. But if the problem is power, I mean, there's a number of.
No, it's better. There's actual. Sorry, Bryce. Let me. I'm sorry, Brian.
You're talking about one of those things with like the foil.
Yep.
That if you've ever seen one, it looks like a triangle made of foil, and then there's a thin wire going off to a power source, and then you flip it, and the thing kind of hovers over ground, and people inaccurately call it levitation or anti-gravity or whatever.
Here we go.
But really, it's just power exerting a downward force that causes this thing to float.
Ionocraft is the name I'm saying. Ionocraft.
Great.
Cool. So what we're looking.
Oh my god, which is just great because it does just look like a 1950s Ed Wood UFO when it lifts off.
Yeah, but in principle, I mean, once we crack the power issue, it seems like that's not out of the question.
Yeah, so we can even get away from what we just saw there was, as Brian described, kind of looked like just a kind of a box kite, but a triangular, and you can do a square, you do a triangular. So it's a 3 poles going upright with what looks like 3 sticks of chewing gum, aluminum foil with the foil on them attached to the sides, and then a wire above the top. And what happens is it's creating a charge, which charges an air molecule, and that creates an ion, which then gets pulled down towards the aluminum there, creating this upward sort of draft. And so it's electric. It's an electric form of lift. And we haven't done we don't know, of course, what the military has been doing to this kind of technology, but with the right kind of energy, and you could use beamed energy with right amount of energy in there, is you have no moving parts, yet you're still having things that can float. And that, if you imagine, building, a dozen of those things interlocking inside of each other, and you could have a system that is, you could build some sort of like ducted jet. So I'm going to say, if we can get enough power, you could have things that kind of looked a lot like hover bikes and land speeders.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's crazy. That's a crazy concept.
So I got one. What's up with the complete lack of ballistics in the Star Wars galaxy? Is this a case where it's like, the galaxy's got a slightly different set of rules of physics, or for some reason, gunpowder don't work? Why would every society kind of independently apparently discover blaster technology?
I think that's an example of, one of the problems you have in any kind of munitions. If you can reduce it to just one thing, where it's electric or whatever, that's the ideal. And if you, instead of having to have to buy your bullets and your gunpowder, if you had, you just need to be able to charge this thing and it works.
Although I take it back. There was one type of ballistics, and it was apparently effective enough to destroy the Empire on the forest moon of Endor when they threw rocks
True that.
at the stormtroopers.
So I would say it's just a matter if they have a more superior form of technology. If all you need is energy to power the thing, and that way you're not going to have to worry about running out of bullets. Just have charges.
Oh, and you know what? Actually, in a society, and I'm trying to write out the highly diverse prequels, but considering that the Empire is the bad guy, you could picture that in this kind of communist fascist society, it's like, no, the great leader has decided that blasters are the best weapons. All weapons will be blasters. You can kind of picture that kind of thing happening.
Well, I mean, again, I think that we will move towards all energy-based weapons in the future. I think that's where we're actually progressing towards.
Interesting.
And I think that, and you could do things too that people are like, well, how come you can watch the light beam move? Like, who says it's not a bunch of compressed air turned into plasma? And we've heard them say plasma blast or whatever. So I'm saying it's not a laser pistol as much as it's like, ever see the vortex cannon where it creates that vortex of air and you feel like, you could do that, and you could create a super high energy plasma that hits you like that. And that would not feel good, I bet.
Yeah. No. I can even picture the kind of thing.
I also bet that would be very, very bad.
Yeah, I could totally picture like just a in the chamber creates a temporary vortex of magnetic energy or something that dissipates after long enough, and then has to go. That, I guess, that'd also be how lightsabers worked, right? It's
we could combine lightsabers and holograms that way.
Go on.
So if you can use like a lot of the hologram technology uses sound waves to sort of keep things. You can use sound waves to make things levitate and stay in one place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Beads of water, things like that. You can use magnetic fields, you can use sound waves, so you can use those to keep things stationary. You with me? So if you were using that to keep a bunch of like a bunch of, dust or iron filings or something like that that were stationary, not moving, then you could heat it up with the laser, microwave them or whatever. You could have this beam that doesn't go beyond 3 feet. And you could keep it in a stable place. Now we're looking at right now, they're using ultrasonic waves to keep water droplets stationary.
Yep.
And change the shape, etc. So if you had some sort of plasma bubble or whatever, you could certainly make something that looked like. Again, we don't have that. We have the small parts of this now. We can do this with 1 centimeter things, but
yeah. Well, and you know what? I can actually I can even envision a galaxy where you have an amazing scientific society. Let's say the core society that figures out all this stuff. And that for whatever reason fades out, and yet all of its gifts are still there, and so as a result, you got so many rudimentary uses for these high end post singularity technologies.
But even look at today, if you go to other places like the Middle East or other places that aren't lesser developed countries and stuff, where people are still using ox driven carts. People are still using animal power. People are still burning, manure in their homes to keep it warm. Yet they might have cell phones. Yet they have some of these other technologies. It's this very weird mixed. And that was the expression was the problem of the future is it's distributed unevenly.
Right.
So, because we fall into sort of prey thinking that everybody's like we are right now talking on Skype with Siri and that other thing at our moment, Notice and stuff. There are other places that don't have, most of the world actually doesn't have all the latest 21st century technology there. A lot of them don't even have steady power. But airplanes fly overhead. They're in a universe a lot more like a Star Wars universe.
Yeah. So what other technologies have we covered all the big ones?
No,
I guess hyperspace,
no.
faster than light travel.
Yeah, we can go. So we got laser pistols. So yeah, let's talk about fast and light travel as you just mentioned. Okay.
That one's tougher.
Go ahead, Brian.
That one's tougher to just walk through.
I solved it, guys.
Oh yeah.
So there are. Oh my God.
There is the problem with fast and light travel, and you have to think about it this way. If you're just saying yes, let's go fast and light, you run into sort of causality violations, which effectively means that you have a time machine as we sort of presently understand it. Because if you're like, oh, if you go faster than X, then you have to be going back in time. And that's sort of the problem is like, how do you have time travel? How do you have, fast and light without having time travel? Because time travel seems to sort of break the universe as far as how things work. Well, there are other ideas in it. There's nothing to say that within certain spots you can't go what appears to be faster. And all we want to do is we want to get from point A to point B that's, let's say it's 10 light years away, and we don't have to wait 10 years to be able to get there in relative time. There are some views of the universe saying, okay, something may be 10 light years away, but if there is a shorter path from here to there, then there's a difference. And we know this is true because when we look at like gravitational lensing, light can be bent around galaxies and can take a longer path to get from one point to the other because of the distortion of space-time. And if we found out that space was distorted on a microscopic level, on a very, very subatomic level, which some theories say that it is, there's one theory, we talk about the Casimir effect, where if you put two perfectly polished plates right next to each other, it sort of eliminates the sort of like the quantum foam or the quantum little things that happen in between there. And some theories say that light would travel faster through there.
Huh.
Okay.
Right. So, but some people say that's completely nuts. But the point is you could say, okay, there's a way to get from point A to point B if you sort of had a way to avoid all the little quantum things that sort of slow you down or the quantum friction or whatever. And you're not going to go, you're still going to be limited by an upper limit, so you're not going to go back in time, but you are going to get there faster than if you just shot a beam of light there directly.
Yeah. Uh,
You're not investing, Brian?
I mean, let's just say, and then something happens, and then we get to Star Wars.
I'm just saying if you go look, like, you look up the Wikipedia and you look at all the different theories that people have been trying to put forward there, and there's new ones, and these are from like physicists. These are people who are really grounded in sort of how the universe is supposed to work. You realize there's a lot of people looking for this, like, yes, this is true here, but if we look at it this other way, and you get into things of, some very, very interesting sort of ideas of what if the universe, because every theory we have is a model. It's a model that tries to explain things, but we understand that things are actually more complex than what they are.
Yeah.
And the idea is saying that it's, maybe there is another way that doesn't break what we know, but it gives you this other approach to it.
Right
it could
on.
all be a simulation, and there could just be a warp drive.
Oh, there you go. Of course, Elon Musk is right.
There we
And-
go. You just get the cheat code.
Yeah, that's okay. So in that regard, yeah, no, I'm buying it now. All of a sudden, of course, that's sort of a catch-all. That's for for anything. The Super Friends universe exists, and
It's an in-game add-on, warp
Yeah.
drive. The cover's like, we don't have a good theory for how this works. Doesn't matter. Push it.
yeah.
That was one of the things that I thought Joss Whedon did wonderfully in Firefly. Do you remember how the Firefly universe worked?
Yeah. Well, it feels like they were going from star system to star system, but instead they left Earth that was, and they just found a extremely planetary, full of a bunch of planets, all of which you could get, in a short amount of time, relatively short amount of time from planet to planet, right?
Yeah, big fat solar system, a solar system with a ton of planets. I thought that was a wonderful way to do that, because even now we're looking at our own solar system, and we realize that, like, hey, Earth is cool. Mars with the right atmosphere would be kind of neat. If Venus had some more rotation to it, whatever, and wasn't hell, Venus could be kind of cool. Jupiter, you've got some interesting places. There's Saturn, you got Titan.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a system that had 3 suns. So that's why you get different colors, or 4 stars. Wow, that's some complicated math. 5. There's a white dwarf there too. Wow, that's how you tell a story, people. 1,
So
2,
if we were on
3,
surface
4.
of Titan, we wouldn't need pressure suits. We'd need some nice something to keep us warm and some oxygen, but we could walk out there without spacesuits.
Yeah, dude, Titan is my favorite world to imagine. I mean, outside of it being cold, it has real rain and thunderstorms and rivers. And granted, it's all alcohol. Is that what it is? Ethanol? No, methane. Methane. And yeah, no, and it's possible that there's critters living in there.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of an exciting thing to think about. Like, so, Ganymede, of course, which I think Jupiter thinks the challenge of Jupiter, of course, is that, like, you need to have a lot of fuel depots to be able to go there, and like the inner ones are problematic because of the gravity well, but still, and that's. I'm going to touch this back to SpaceX for a moment. The cool thing about the ITS rocket, by the way, which Elon Musk showed some footage of them. I think maybe it was a Merlin engine, but they've got, they're building a rocket, a spaceship that can go there. Build it now. They're like working on this.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
But we're I think that's the hardest part, of course, is fast and light. That's the hardest part about this is the fast and light. How do you get there? How do you get there so quickly? How do you, like, even the Force, we were talking about this a little bit before the show.
How about this? What it says it's a galaxy far, far away, long time ago or whatever.
It's a tiny galaxy. Is that what you're getting at?
That is exactly what I'm getting at.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like we don't know the scale, the size of anything. What if it's microscopic? And they really can, just by jumping to light speed, get from one section to another in that. Or I guess. Oh, that's interesting. So, like, let's say it takes about a day at light speed. So imagine it's a galaxy just about the size of our solar system, where you could get from one side of it to the other at light speed in a matter of days.
There are some theories that the speed of light has changed, and it is different in different parts of the universe.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. I think that's my favorite explanation so far. Tiny galaxy.
That's one of the theories deals with the idea if you have places that had no dark matter or whatever, there's the idea of universal inertia. There's a lot of theories that sort of say, okay, we're not going to say relativity is wrong. We're just saying that's if there's our concept of distance may be wrong.
Yeah.
Or it's based on one aspect of it.
All right, I like this. And also a long time, wait, and actually, hold on. Now I'm thinking about it, a long time ago, maybe this occurs in the first few microseconds after the Big Bang. Maybe all of this happens super fast during the rapidly expanding universe phase.
Well, there was when Lucas wrote Star Wars and he had Han Solo saying that he could, make the jump in like 12 parsecs, people were like laughing because like that's distance, not time. Well, maybe that is what he meant. Maybe the idea is that you found that shorter path that avoided these gravity wells or et cetera, whatever.
Yeah, I think in the expanded universe, they introduced the Kessel Run as a unconventional route would take you through an anomaly where the faster you went, the shorter the distance became. But
yeah. Works for me. It's all true. It's a documentary. We all know this.
Yeah, it works for me, man. I'm feeling good about this. I think we've explained all. Oh, I guess the Force. The Force.
Okay. So you mentioned before the Machu Picchu. The idea of this. We can imagine. A very Victorian Robert Houdin solution to how you could walk into a room and make things move and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you do this when you're out on Hoth, Brian, and the Wamp is about to get you, and your lightsaber's just out of reach. And by the way, you saw the theater, right? Like me, right? As a kid.
Oh, sure.
Now you have to understand, children, up until that moment in Star Wars lore, you did not know you could move things with the Force.
Yeah, no, the Force was nothing but like a vibe that made you really good at flying, right? Like it made you skilled, like supernaturally fast, or precise, so that you could block a blaster bolt with your lightsaber. That's about all the Force was good for.
You could like maybe do a little bit of mind rape on some stormtroopers and stuff, but like that was. I mean, Vader could squeeze his fingers and make you start to choke, but you're like, maybe it's psychology or whatever.
Yeah,
we didn't know, and so we're watching Luke stuck there like hanging like a side of meat as this Yeti's about to eat him, and we're like, what's he gonna do? And I remember the scene as he just reaches towards the lightsaber, and that first little wiggle.
It's like, no way.
Like, what just happened?
Can I tell you?
Did the movie jump?
I for years I had the false memory, because keep in mind I saw it when I was 4 years old, 5 years old, and of course memories very easily get corrupt. And at the time, I couldn't understand why it was wiggling and moving out. So I confabulated a scene that I was convinced exists in the movie of the lightsaber being on and projecting down into another tunnel where another Wampa was curious and was kind of hitting it and flinching.
A little skeptic.
And that's what was knocking it up. And then finally
it
happened enough that he grabbed it and was able to go nuts. And I don't think I've ever told anyone about that. For like 20 years, I'm like, why do I have this very clear memory before I learned how you could easily misremember all that stuff?
Dude, I was on board once that thing flew into his. Like, oh, you could do that,
dude. That's for me. That moment was was when the Emperor busted out like lightning bolts. Like, what? You don't even have a lightsaber? What? This is crazy.
That's Jedi. Yeah.
New rules.
So that moment when that lightsaber moved and jumped into his hands, I'm like, the world shook for me. I'm like, I want to be able to do that.
Well, it's funny. I remember Ryan, who's the guy who's directing 8?
Johnson.
Ryan Johnson, right? He was talking about Looper, that when he was writing the screenplay for Looper, that there was the question of, all right, well, we already have time travel. Do we also want to have telekinesis? And that he always thought it was kind of BS that, that there was this kind of unwritten rule that like one like indulgence means that you cannot have another in terms of science fiction and fantasy writing. And like when you think about it, like Star Wars is kind of great because it matches all those different things together.
Yeah. Well, and I guess it's a lot like as we've come to fall in love with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like each comic book always had its own kind of set of rules, and yet somehow they coexisted. And you're like, oh, we're in this area where everything can be solved with technology. And like, oh, no, we're over here where magic works. And they've always done a great job of just sort of, when you journey to these different patches in the MCU, different things seem to apply, and I think that's what I'm so excited about. Whatever movie's coming out this weekend is that we're finally traveling to a more militaristic side of the story.
Yeah, so I'll put this thought out there regarding the Force. Is we look at things like drones, we look at things like nanotechnology and AI, and get to the idea of when we start creating invisible things that you cannot see but are still there. Star Wars was always wonderful because it didn't need these explanations. It didn't need it. It worked without it, but it's fun to do that. But when you start thinking about when you read Peter F. Hamilton books and you start getting into the idea of the post-singular, if Star Wars was a civilization that took place post-singularity, but they didn't know it, and you had the remnants of that, I think as Brian mentioned there, is that you could have things like, microscopic nanobots and stuff like that answer to your mind's will and move things and float and make all this sort of stuff happen. But it would appear to be magical.
Yeah. So in fact, that'll be my pick. Is it the Dreaming Void trilogy? He figures out a way to tell a fantasy story in a science fiction post singularity world, and the method is that it's a construct by a precursor race. In the middle of the galaxy is a supermassive black hole, and inside that black hole are a bunch of planets and stars or create facsimiles thereof, and they have this kind of idyllic, medieval kind of lifestyle. They say they know that they came from a colony ship, but basically it's Game of Thrones in there, and that there are people who can quote unquote long talk to each other, ESP or long arm, move things with their mind, and then somebody even figures out how to turn back time, and of course, and all of this happens by way, and this is a spoiler, but I think it'll help give you a foothold going into it. But the people on the outside of it. It's not magic to them. They're just watching this supermassive black hole get bigger and bigger as it sucks up more and more mass to create all the energy to redraw the whole world backwards, just for the will of that one person. So it ends up balancing the scales and makes a scientific case for how something like that could happen. I really dug it.
Well, Brian, that's good. It's good that you have things you like, because there are going to be things you don't like in this next episode of
Journey Quest.
Oh, I was about to. Do we say it? Do you say it? I what's going on? I've already have my game face on because I have to defeat Justin in this trivia challenge right here in the Diamond Dome. Otherwise, actually, if I was a better person, I would be figuring out a way for us to team up. But instead, I'm just actually scrolling through my user interface, trying to see if there's an English setting so I can cheat on the trivia challenge.
All right,
first we got to find out who the Dr. Dude is.
Captain Cool.
Let's back up and tell everybody where we are right now in Journey Quest.
Right now, Brian and Justin have escaped the clutches of the militaristic super government stand-in. They split up because Brian took a willing upgrade of Hitler AI tech.
We don't know for sure it's Hitler. It's just German. German engineering can't be beat.
His name's Adolf. You keep Zig Heiling involuntarily. So Justin, disgusted with his partner's actions, struck off on his own, only to be brought in to a desert cult community of what seems to be Diamond Club folks, as they have their supreme leader that organizes these battles, which is the only way to earn money in the community. And now Brian and Justin are face to face in a high stakes trivia contest.
But just at this moment, the mysterious hooded figure, the guy who rules Diamond Town, known by many names, Legion are his names, from Admiral Awesome, Captain Cool. They're just making up all these delightful complimentary names left and right. Seems like he's about to show up here on the scene.
Well, he is now. There was a bunch of lights. The lights dimmed and a platform lowered from up above, and you saw the most awesome leather boots that were like made Kiss boots look like dance shoes, and then leather pants, and then you saw these black, leathery, feathery wings that just stretch from one end of the dome to the other. metal plating, armor, shoulder pads, just spikes sticking out of everywhere, and then a face mask, this big huge face mask that's kind of kabuki style, kind of Rom the Space Knight style, whatever. And there's like smoke coming out of the mouth grill, and there's like just this red glow, just this sort of like just evil, sinister, like demon sort of thing. And the voice is like, "You will now play the trivia challenge." And you're like,
I elbowed Justin, and it was like, man, could you imagine with me and my implants bet if I looked awesome like that? That'd be awesome.
so two guys come running out on their knees to look like midgets, but they're not. But it's just weird because this
Wait, they're full-grown men pretending to be dwarves by walking around on their knees? They're like dwarf on golf? Like do they have slippers like yogurt and they have capes behind them to hide their legs?
They hand you each buzzers, right? And
test
the buzzers
mine.
have little handcuffs on them too. The handcuffs like click around you, so you got the buzzer in your hand. Like the buzzer's got these cables that go off.
I give mine a test just to see if it works.
And you hear this.
Okay, and I address the crowd.
-5 points, Brushwood.
Oh, okay. Well, I explained to the audience, like, no, I'm not an idiot. It's just that once I was in a trivia contest against Justin.
-10 points, Brushwood.
Well, and I lost because my thing wasn't attached before, and I've never forgotten it.
85 points, Brushwood. -100 points, electrocution.
All of a sudden, you get a big shock that goes through you, and like, "Ugh!"
All right. I could tell when I could read an audience.
Yeah. All right. So all of a sudden, the Admiral of Astounding pulls out of his pocket what looked like some Trivial Pursuit cards from Applebee's.
Oh my God.
I squint really hard and see if I can use my enhanced sight to detect which edition of Trivial Pursuit it is.
What was the name of the community the women from Golden Girls lived in?
In his voice. What was the name of the community the women in Golden Girls lived in?
Oh God.
I flinch and act like I'm about to buzz, like I know the answer, but I'm really just trying to psych Justin out into buzzing randomly.
Yeah, I Justin takes the pass on that one.
All right, but then I keep doing it. I look over at Justin.
You hear a clock going 10, 9, 8.
I real quick, I say, Adolf, I need help on this one. Do you know the Golden Girls? Adolf.
Friend. I don't know. I only know the name in German.
Damn. I say, the Golden Girls. The Golden Girls live
0.
there.
Both of you get electrocuted. Right? And then you're on the floor unconscious.
That's
Okay.
Right? Then you're groggy and you're being kicked by the dwarfs. They're kicking you up and you're like, oh, they're like, next round.
Oh man.
Right? The Commander Courageous, the King of Cool. Next question. Pulls out another card. This also looks like an Applebee's Trivial Pursuit card. How many bullets did Barney Fife have in Andy Griffith?
I buzz and I say, 1.
Correct. Justin gets electrocuted.
Again.
All right. Now we're entering into the speed round.
This is a fast game. I'm into it now. I start bobbing on my feet, and I'm looking at. I say, "What do you say, crowd? Who's your favorites?"
Also,
They're
is this all
actually-
going to be about Nick at Night?
All right, speed round. Finish this sentence. Clarissa knows what? Justin
It all.
knows all or it all?
It all.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
He's like,
Is that right? Is the
you are
question-
correct.
Oh no!
Brian gets electrocuted.
And I real quick,
It's
I
also
say,
Clarissa explains it all.
Yeah,
but that's
she
fine.
explained it. She didn't know everything. She just talked about it all.
yeah, you don't want to be the one to explain it to Captain Cool.
Yeah,
that
I'm
he said
both
the
I'm
question.
just going to go ahead and take the it all.
Somehow Bryce
knows
in a hospital on the other side of the country gets electrocuted.
For that, you have to go to the pit.
Wait, who does?
Wait, what?
Both of you.
Uh,
Never correct the commander.
I didn't. I did not. I thought it in my head. I didn't say
Oh,
it.
you thought it out loud.
God
so you
damn
both
it.
get shocked and you pass out. Okay. All right. So you get passed out. You wake up. You guys aren't together anymore. You're in separate rooms. You're in small little boxes. Small little boxes.
All right.
All
I say, not knowing if I have this ability yet, I say, Adolf, turn on light eyes.
9.
Oh, okay. All right. So I can't shoot light from my eyes. Got it.
Yeah. There's like a bunch of Whoppers wrappers, by the way, on the floor of your box, Brian, because you recognize the smell.
Oh, well, okay. I pat around and see if there's any that can be anything of value.
There is an old onion ring.
Oh, I eat it quickly.
That doesn't really have any.
But before I do, I take the onion ring and I do like you do with an orange slice, and to nobody there in the room, I smile as if I'm a boxer wearing a mouth guard. I'm like, come on, you want me? And then I chew it up and eat it.
You did. Justin, you're also inside of a tiny little box.
All right.
Okay, and you're thinking, man, I really should keep my mouth shut. You know?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess we survived, right? The other people that we saw that didn't win got killed. So upside.
All right. So there is a somebody knocks on your cage, Justin, and say, all right, pick a number between 1 and 10.
5.
Perfect. It's him. Door unlocks. You open it up. 2 big, tall dudes there, dressed in like leather armor. They're like, all right, come with us. They walk you down a tunnel, okay? Dirt tunnel, dirt sides. You come to a wall, and there's all sorts of weapons there. You've got, but I mean, like improvised weapons. It might be like a tree, like a branch saw. You see like a weed whacker. You see, garbage can lid. There's like a chain from a chainsaw. There's like ice skates that have like just the ice skate, like the blades with like tape around it, so you can use them as sort of some sort of weapon. They're like, all right, pick one. And maybe you see something cool I didn't describe. You can tell me if that's there.
I'm gonna go with the tree saw.
You're gonna go with the tree saw. You're gonna go with the tree saw. You ready? You happy with the
Yeah.
tree saw?
Yeah.
All right. So you go down to another tunnel. They open up the doors, and you're back in the Diamond Dome.
Okay.
Okay? You're back in the Diamond Dome, and they're like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, a fight to the death.
Oh, geez. Well, so much for that upside.
Yeah. You see this gate on the other side. There's this big, tall gate, right? And these guys come, they start to unbuckle it. They start to unlock the gate. Gate opens up.
Yeah.
There's a dude who's like 9 foot tall.
Okay.
9 foot tall. But his legs are kind of long, kind of like the guy that dresses like Uncle Sam during the 4th of July parades and stuff.
Are they
Sure.
They kind of wooden, like maybe
Yeah,
some
or
tree
maybe
saw would
like
be good.
stilts for like roofer and stilts or whatever like that. Okay, so you got this really tall dude there, right? He's got 2 baseball bats in either hand with like nails through them.
Okay.
Maybe the stilts are wooden. That's a good point, Brian. It's a very good point. I'm picking up what you're
Okay.
putting down. All right. There's a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And he just stands there. What's that?
I start charging towards.
You start charging him.
I'm charging
What's your
towards the
back
man
to?
with the stilts. I assume that my quickness needs to be my great advantage against Stilt Man. What I try to do is swing the tree saw while I run around him to see. Hopefully, the teeth of the saw catch into his stilt, so I can try to at least pull him off balance.
Okay, so Stilt Man is off balance. You hacked away at the leg like that, and you feel like a bat just sort of like grazed your back, like a nail sort of grazed your back. Okay. But you roll to the side. But Stilt Man kind of just managed to get back a little back upright now. Okay. And he stands there again.
I try the same maneuver, except this time on the other side, I try to go after the other leg.
He's like, oh! it was weird, intelligible sound.
I feel like Stiltman is holding like two bats over his head, like just holding him way up and jumping up and down.
Like Stiltman is like Stiltman maybe is he toying with him? Is that he's just toying with Justin, just getting him to attack him? Is that what you're saying? Because that's what it sounds like you're describing Stiltman is doing. Stiltman has the bats. He could just waste Justin right now, but he doesn't. And so obviously, clearly, he's just doing a toy with him,
Yeah,
That's my
I'm going to make him pay for that kind of that kind of insolence, and so I again go after him, and this time I try to permanently damage his stilt.
So you go after you just hack into like with the right stilt or the left stilt.
I tried the right one first, and now I go after the left one.
All right. So all of a sudden you've damaged that stilt, and Stiltman's hopping around on one stilt, right?
Then Stiltman looks like his eyes get really wide, like he has an idea, and he takes his right hand bat and holds it up to his left shoulder. And then points straight out towards the sky. And he keeps repeating the gesture as if he's trying to communicate something non-verbally about who's inside the stilt costume.
Justin rolls his eyes in such a slow and deliberate motion that everybody in the Diamond Dome is also simultaneously disgusted. I drop the saw, and I attempt to push Stiltman over so I can help remove the stilts that are tied to him.
Realizing that he only has one stilt to stand on, but is holding two baseball bats, Stiltman realizes he can walk like an awesome tripod and leans over and uses his arms as more legs as he walks around the arena as a three-legged giant sloth man.
Frustrated by the fact that Stiltman is not comprehending that Justin is trying to free him from his stilts. Justin then again rolls his eyes and just points at Stiltman and says, "Oh my God, this guy!" Right?
How does the crowd react to that? Stiltman looks up at the crowd to see if they like that.
Oh, they're not happy. They're throwing stuff at you. They're booing you. They want to fight to the death. They're just like, what is this dumb Cirque du Soleil? What's going on?
All right. So Stiltman realizes that the only way we're going to get out of this is if we put on a good enough show that they think we're fighting. So Stiltman charges to one side, as a tripod, turns back around, rears up, looks at Justin, and using his right cudgel, scrapes the ground a few times as if a bear or a bull about to charge.
Justin looks at Stiltman and says, "For real, though, this guy."
All right. Stiltman charges towards Justin and not wanting to physically injure him, but at least, keep us from being booed to death, charges into him, puts down his head, and just sort of tackles Justin, knocks him over as he, very gingerly tries to make it look like he trampled him, but actually doesn't hurt him at all. And then as he goes by, he muffles like, and then keeps on going because he's talking through a gag.
Justin, in the shortest amount of words possible, tries to explain to Brian that what we want is for guards to come out and either try to kill us so we can create an escape route for ourselves.
Okay. Nodding. Stiltman gets up. He doesn't get up on...
All of a sudden, there's an air horn. Goes off. Air horn, right?
Okay.
You're like, what do we do now? And you see up above, you see the platform start to lower again, but you don't see the boots. You just see this big black wall, and it has like diamond symbol there, glowing, flashing, strobing, and then you start to hear this a really, really, but like a really cool kind of bass track start to play, and it keeps going back, and it's the tallest DJ booth you've ever seen with two turntables, and guess who is mixing it? None other than the supreme super dude of Diamond Town is now mixing it up and playing some fat music for you all.
Is he doing any live switching at the same time?
You do notice overhead there are some projection screens that have been showing some very topical comments as you've been doing this fight. Sloths, things like that, whatever. And he's like, keep it up, boys. Keep it up.
Oh my God. That's gotta be. I just look up and in a quizzical look, I'm like, Bryce?
What's up, nerds?
He's like, but it's crazy Bryce. It's Bryce who has gone through, seen some stuff. Bryce ain't Bryce anymore. Bryce has gone through a bit of this is evil Bryce.
All right. So
Remember, I killed a lot of children.
I tried desperately to appeal to Bryce's the man that Bryce was before by looking him dead in the eyes, pointing at Brian and saying, "But for real, this guy, right?"
All right. Tripod stilt man gets over and puts his face, leans it forward to Justin, and kind of gestures as if, please remove the mouth gag because I have an idea.
All right.
Bryce has at his disposal, by the way, water cannons. He's got people with sticks that can stab you and electrocute you. He has guys with armed machine guns, and he maybe has some devious plan for all of this. Have you thought about that?
Here. So with the gag removed,
I still remove the gag. I remove the gag.
I say, look, keep fighting. I have an idea, and then I kind of push him forward, right? And then as I get over his body, I raise a fist and look to the crowd, who hopefully is cheering for me. I say, we have to make him remember. And then I slam down, but just to the side of Justin's head.
Okay.
And then I turn and I offer my battle cry. I stand up on the one leg and throw my two cudgels in the air and say, "It's go time!" And then start charging at Justin again. And I, as if to intimate that if we give enough cues of the life he once remembered, perhaps some of his sanity.
You just see Bryce, the music sort of stops for a moment there, and his hand goes over to a switcher, and then he just goes back to mixing up the beats there. And by the way, the whole crowd, the whole Diamond Town crowd around the Diamond Dome, they are electrified. You see, they're looking at him like he is a god. He is a god to them, and you're just insects.
All right. I say, live from Diamond Dome. It's the
fight dedicated
best.
to
It's the best fight in the world since 1776. I'm gonna kill my BFF, JRY.
For some reason, this is making Bryce more angry.
Yeah. How is this what he would remember? How are we jogging his memory by actually trying to kill each other?
It's called muscle memory.
Brian,
now
there's
all of a sudden, like he's increases the volume on the bass, and it's getting louder and louder, and it's actually like a weapon. You're feeling your inside, your gut start to liquefy.
All right, there's only one way, Brian, that we can survive this.
And we'll find out next week on Journey Quest.
Right on.
I like people are congratulating themselves for figuring it out. There are only 4 people here.
I put it on the Reddit after last week's episode, asking who people thought it would be, and the very first person who commented definitely called it and said it would be me.
That's amazing. What I love is that you're explaining why it can't be you. You're like, well, it says you're my pick. You're like, no, I mean, technically, I was canonically.
Well, look, I had to keep. Look, I knew I had to keep the mystery going.
Hey man, do you guys want to do picks?
Yeah, I was gonna say like if I fell behind because I was actually gonna try to get voiceover from Tom Merritt.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
That was my call. I thought it was either Tom or Scott.
Yeah. I was too lazy.
My pick is The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Thankfully now Netflix allows you to download their programs, so perfect for flights. I watched half of the first season or the second season, which I had not yet seen, on the plane. I am just in love with that writing, that 30 Rock style kind of rapid fire, very silly. I think that that show being on Netflix just gives them the ability to get into weirder, darker things that they might not have otherwise. And it is obviously kind of a weirder, darker show to hang it on. So I've loved it so far.
How does the second season stand up to the first?
I think it's as good.
Well, I would imagine maybe even I guess I was thinking it might be better just because, you know, the first season was a bit disjointed in that it started off as a product for broadcast television, but then became a Netflix original in the writing and development. But second season, you know, they knew what they were going to be from the beginning.
Yeah, and you start to see those hallmarks there, and you know, for a show that, you know, cast a John Hamm as a wacky, charismatic cult leader, you know, this is very, very, very much in that same vein. It's awesome.
That was such a great part of the first season.
Yeah. Well, especially not knowing. I don't know how they managed to keep that from being like the headline across the board, because that moment of recognize and you see him all, you know, crazy Mansoned out for a while, and then it's when he's cleaned up, you're like, what the what?
Yeah.
And of course, and then he nails it with the way he seduces the jury and everything.
Oh, you're thinking like, and he's like an evil rapist person, horrible, but he's like, oh, he's very charming. Like, wait a second, no, this is.
But yeah, just his like screwball. Like, I think that's it. I mean, like, the show is really about these like kind of fairly dark kind of like survivor themes, but like, it is just the screwballiest of screwball comedies, which is amazing.
Yeah, so let me double check that. I believe it's called the Dreaming Void series from Peter F. Hamilton. Dreaming Void. Loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun. And this is, some people may be interested to know, we've previously talked about the two books, Pandora's Star and Judas Unchained. This is the same universe as those two books, but 1,000 years later. And because it's a post-singularity universe, a few people are still alive in various forms from back then.
My pick is I was looking around for something on Amazon Prime to watch. So you know what? Like every few years I go watch these movies. I'm going to go watch them again because I think that in retrospect, they don't get as much respect as maybe they should, because sometimes when people talk about them, their version of what they remember isn't as accurate as I think is what they actually were. And it's important to understand why they did so well. And particularly, you know, understand like, and it's helpful too when you think about plot. And I am talking about the Rocky movies.
Oh, wow.
If you go back and watch, I actually started to, you know what? I haven't seen Rocky 2 in forever. So I went and watched Rocky 2, which was a solid follow-up, actually written and directed by Stallone, which is a solid follow-up and says, okay, let's go to the next step with the story. Rocky 3, you know, had some silly sort of moments, but still was sort of a very interesting. That was where he fought Mr. T and sort of like, how do you do the story? Rocky 4 was a perfect 80s movie, you know, Rocky versus Ivan Drago, you know, and it is cheesy on many levels, but it's also like you go, man, that's the movie it needed to be for that time and era. Rocky 5 is, you know, the weakest of them because they're trying to figure out where to go. But still, one of the things you appreciate about the character of Rocky is that, and you go back and you watch Rocky 1, or Rocky as it was called, and you appreciate the fact of how funny Rocky was. Rocky was a likable character, how likable he was, even in the first one where he's a guy who's doing collections, a leg breaker, you know, for the mob, and how he's just this sad life. You see his apartment and just realize this is a guy that kind of was never going to get his shot, tried to be a good guy, but just because of circumstances, it was hard. But it was a lot of that character was just a very well done character. And Talia Shire's character, really well done. That story of what it's about, and you get into like sports movies and you get hung up on the idea of, well, how many times can you watch somebody win? But when you go to the Rocky movies, particularly, you know, he doesn't win most of the matches. You know, it's usually about the underdog and trying to get to a point where even just, you know, breaking even can make a big deal, which is what made Rocky Balboa. And it's not about what happens, it's about how it happens. And so when you're telling a story, you can say, I have this discussion. I've been doing a lot of Periscope sessions. Be like, how do I do something that's, you know, all the ideas have been done, which one is not true. And two, it's how you tell a story. It's how you tell it. And we've had a lot of boxing movies. Rocky, I think, is still the best boxing movie there is.
Well, and and really, my theory on sports movies is I think the best ones are the ones that really use the DNA of the game to tell the story. And boxing, so much of it is the hype of the story of who these people are, and we're going to settle this conflict, and then they are going to go in their own separate directions. Hyping up a fight is something that just got the UFC to sell their their corporation for billions of dollars. And Rocky is just the canonical example of that, almost even on a meta level, as Apollo Creed is like, oh, no, wait. Like, he recognizes the idea that Rocky could be a good fight for him to kind of just further his brand, really. I mean, the idea of Apollo Creed as a character and Rocky as a foil for him in the first two films specifically is just like so prescient for not only that boxing at that time, but also, just all of as big as fighting kind of got in the intervening 50 years.
I'm going to take a dissenting point of view. If you go back and you watch the first Rocky movie, Creed is there, but Creed is an opportunity. But Creed, it's so much about this guy who's this, had a bunch of hard breaks and maybe not made the best choices in life. You get more time with the romance between him and Talia Shire's character, who's this shy, people call her retarded because she's so shy kind of girl. Rocky's stuck working for the mobster and this sort of stuff. I would say that it's not that it could have been you found out that he liked to do amateur night, drama, and he got a chance to do an audition for Juilliard or something, and that story still worked. I would say that part of what it works is it's not the other ones, certainly the other like 2 and 3 and all that, certainly, yes, get into that hype. And I'd say that was a problem with 5. It was just like the character, the Don King character is clearly Don King. But I would say part of the reason Rocky worked was just it didn't feel like a sports movie.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to draw a circle around, and probably doing it poorly, is just the idea that hyping a boxing match is about the story, and the more organically you can do it, the better it is. The more that people can in their hearts have a rooting interest in a fight is kind of the seed to that. And that was such a beautiful story to tell of this guy who's like, kind of a lunkhead, but he wants, he's as pure at heart as we are assuming his environment allows. So I don't know, but you're right. It is so much those performances are not certainly beholden to sports, but I think that the inherent tale of a fighter's journey culminating in a fight is so ingrained in it that it was just so poetically done in that movie.
Well, that is my pick. You've got Rocky 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are on Amazon Prime, and then I thought Rocky Balboa, a little bit on the short side, was a great kind of like capstone to that story. And then with Creed was such a great launch of this, and where do you go from the story there? And very excited to see what happens to the Creed saga, because you realize, you go back and you look at the evolution of Apollo Creed's character in there, where and even in the first Rocky, he's not a bad guy. He's an opportunistic guy, but he's not really the villain so much. He's a guy that Rocky has this respect for, even because Rocky's realized how Rocky defends Creed because he sees, he appreciates the guy that he tried to be bigger and better and whatever. And that's what made sort of the friendship that developed between them. I thought, as you watch them all in sequence, you go like, yeah, this is genuine and this is real. And then you go watch Creed, from Balboa, you appreciate it even more of what, that meant. And that's one of the things I loved about that story, was it would have been very easy to make Creed into the bad guy, but he wasn't. He was just the champion trying to, do what he was going to do. And, thought that, Rocky would be a cinch, but turned out to be otherwise. So it's my pick.
So great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Gentlemen, it's been weird.
All right. I got to use the bathroom.
I have to turn off the AC. It's getting cold.
It is cold in here. Maybe just the fan.
Yeah.
There we go. By the way, if you're listening, I was put out a blast on the social last night, but I redesigned That Sounds Cool. What up? It looks really awesome. and not only is it redesigned, not only does it look really nice, but we've also got lists on the site now. If you don't have Apple Music or Spotify and want to remake these playlists yourself, with the artist names and the releases, and there's a new list out today. And what? Over the holiday, I'm gonna put out two special lists. My favorites from 2016. And so then the songs, not all the songs are from 2016, but they're all songs I discovered and have been on the playlist in 2016. And then also something, I don't know what it'll finally be called, but it'll be a special playlist that will basically update every time that there's another new solo playlist that has everything in it. So it'll be what did I call it on my phone? Everything sounds .cool. And so it's just all of when a new list comes out, those songs get added to there. So both of those are going to come out over the holidays, and you can just check it out and sign up at thatsounds.cool. That's the real website. But yeah, I spent all day yesterday just redoing the site and digging into CSS and learning how to do HTML5 kind of stuff. But it was fun. It was a fun use of a kind of a day off. So that's that.
All right.
Bryce, I think we'll still have a few more twists. Oh, he's there. Never mind.
That was a fun one. It was I didn't know how to navigate going from like I didn't want to telegraph to Justin because Andrew just texted me like, by the way, you're the guy in the stilts. So I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, I didn't know. I wanted to have you guys fight each other, but I'm like, I don't really know how I play that out in a podcast. In my head, the movie was really cool.
Dude, I loved it. I love the fact that I had to sing Heil in order to let Justin know it was me.
I did not realize what you were doing until now.
Oh, really?
I'm like, I guess that's some sort of night attack joke I don't get.
Oh, hey, so
What's up?
since we're just killing time till Justin comes back, for those interested in the gossip around the Modern Rogue thing, there's been like a steady drop off on the number of subscribers. It peaked at 10,000 subscribers in a day and got as low as 3,500. But then over the weekend, it boosted up to 6,000 on Saturday, and then today looks like it'll be like 4,500. So,
well, I mean, we had a new episode on Friday, so.
What you need to do, Brian, is need to say you're gonna kill your channel if you get 50 million.
jeez.
That was so. Ugh.
Did you happen to watch that link that I gave? I think it was you were probably on the
I
road
was
by
in the
then.
road. But
Yeah.
I don't.
It's a really fascinating.
At some point, there are just a lot of videos about algorithms.
Yeah, but this one actually is looks at the math, not gossip and hearsay and complaining about I want, give me, and I mean there's so much internal circle jerking on that whole. But this one is really good. He's like, look, nobody's out to get you. You can't buy your way onto the trending list. Here's, part of it is this, part of it is that.
Maybe check that out.
And he
want you to
makes some
think.
educated guesses about why they're doing it, which I think are pretty dead on.
I over the weekend, because I was redesigning the website on Saturday, and so I was just trying to find anything to put on in the background, and so I hesitate to use such harsh language, but I definitely suffered through the first episode of The 100 and the first episode of Ascension.
100 is that CW one?
No, I think that's sci-fi, but it's
Okay.
it's
That
definitely
was-
about a bunch of
It's
young.
attractive people on a crazy planet.
The 100 is crazy because it goes from 0 to 100 like really quick, like hey, there's this girl and she's in prison because in the space station, if you do a crime, you're punished to death, and that's all crimes.
Yeah.
And now we're taking the prisoners and we're jettisoning them to Earth, and now there's just a bunch of stupid kids, and oh man, there's also political intrigue. I don't know. It was just super fast.
Yeah.
And oh, it is the CW. Okay, well that makes sense. Then. And then Ascension was weird, and I just read the Wikipedia page and had a better time than watching.
Yeah, Ascension was somebody at Sci-Fi was like, let's do Mad Men in space, but not really get what made Mad Men cool or space.
Well, and then like half of that show or half of that first episode isn't even in space, which is like also just really weird. But it did spawn a fun thing that I found. I wonder, did I put it on Twitter too?
Hey Bryce, real quick, do
Yeah,
you happen to remember what Tom and I agreed to watch for Spoiler Time now that Westworld is finished?
You guys did not choose anything.
Okay. Well, you know what?
But you
I
should
will...
just watch something so that you can bring something to
Yeah.
the table, I suppose.
In fact, I'll just let me text Tom.
Sure.
And just say, what's a thing you've watched that I can watch so we can talk about it?
So this, I found this on, I ended up Snapchatting this, but oh, my mouse is not working. Okay, cool.
Are you texting? I know what DIAF means. It means die in a fire.
What is that?
That's from Ascension.
Oh my god! Oh, that's. Can we put that in as the opening video for Cord Killers?
Oh sure. Okay.
Or maybe that could be the opening video for Night Attack.
That might be better for Night.
Have that one as a backup.
My mouse without borders just died. Which I was gonna say is about.
All right.
Hey. Is that okay? Cool. We're back.
Yeah, Beef is right. Brian texts Tom, "Hey man, did you do your homework? Because I need to copy. I need to copy your answers."
Striker Rich says Ascension was a miniseries meant to be a series, but it didn't take. From what I read on the Wikipedia, I don't know how you could make it a miniseries or a continued series, but
Well, that was, again, like I said, the premise early on was like kind of like retro. How do we like this retro space thing? But it's just such a, it's just flawed and like, you know, like I was just once I couldn't even like I read the recap of the first episode. I'm like, this just sounds dumb.
yeah. Alrighty, guys. I sent you 2 emails, Andrew.
Got them open right now.
Oh shit! I guess I should open them, huh?
Oh yeah, and I thought.
Ha ha da da ha. He ha hoo hoodity hoo. Yeah, somebody wrote me. I assume that was
That's-
okay to just forward over to you.
Yeah.
Like I did.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All special K. All right, I'm ready. If you're ready,
All righty.
take it away.
All right. Ready?
In 3, 2.
Was that a yes? Ready?
Yes, yes, we're
Yeah.
ready.
I heard a
Yeah.
sound.
No objections here. We're
All right,
good.
ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the After Things podcast. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Justin Robert Brushwood.
Aha! I psyched
Brian
you out.
Young.
I tried to
What?
fake like I was gonna drink because I knew you would suddenly switch to me. Ha ha!
That, of course, was Brian Brushwood, and the other cackling person you hear is Justin Robert Young.
Well, hello.
Gentlemen, let's jump right into an email that I didn't actually read, and I'm going to just read it for the first time so I could have a whole total Ron Burgundy moment right now. From William, I took Andrew's advice and I wrote a book. I'm almost finished with a sequel, and my question is, how much editing is considered best practice? On the first book, I paid for professional editing, and it made a big difference. I only had the budget for 1 round of developmental editing and 1 round of line editing. Is it more common to do multiple rounds? What does Andrew do for self-published work, and how does it compare to traditional publishing? Love the show. By the way, my first book is called Brains in Chains, and it's a Douglas Adams style humorous sci-fi about artificial intelligence. Awesome. So that is the trick, is how much editing should you do? Ideally, you want to do as much editing to get, man, my slur in my speech today. You want to do as much editing to get rid of the mistakes as you can. That's not really possible, though. I've picked up major releases, million-selling books by big names, and I find mistakes. That doesn't mean that you should have mistakes, but it just tells you that will happen no matter what. I have a couple books I've yet to even send to my agent because I have not gotten around to doing an edit on them. And clearly that's a bad idea. If you don't have the means to hire an editor to do it and to do a pass, and some people do different checks than others, and there are different kinds of edits. There can be a developmental edit where somebody will say, let's fix this and this. There can be a copy editor who goes to look through there for those sort of mistakes. There can be kind of a continuity editor. But if you're looking for just basically spelling mistakes and stuff, ideally, the hard part is you can say if you can get a friend to do it, but friends are good at big notes. Friends are hard at little notes like that, I would say.
And also, having been somebody who's friends are quick to say yes and slow to deliver the good. Like to them, a friend might be tempted to say like, "Oh, he wants me to read his book. Oh, I'm reading his book," and then you're like, "Well, what did you think? What did you notice?" You're like, "Oh, it's great. It's great." That is a challenging place to be.
My advice is this: is if, let's say, assuming, I don't know what resources you have, but I'll assume that you don't have anybody you can go to. I'll assume that it's up to you. I have one of my best friends here is I have a black and white laser printer. The reason I have a black and white or a monochrome laser printer is it is the cheapest way to print things out. Super cheap. Your toner and your paper is really, really inexpensive if you're buying it from Amazon. I have a book I'm working on that I'm doing a first pass on. It's my own and I want to do a lot of notes and stuff. I am going to do a printout of that at some point, chapter by chapter, sit down, more to do for kind of story points. But if I want to release it, if I were to release it on my own, I would print out one chapter at a time, sit down at a table with a red pen, and I would do my edit that way. Your brain handles things differently when you have it in front of you. And if I was going to try to release it, if I was going to take, let's say, the sequel to Station Breaker, which I finished like a year ago, if I was going to try to release that book, what I would do, and if I was just going to do it my own, I would do the same thing. I would print it, and then I would read it aloud. And the best thing you can do to self-edit is they say to read things backwards, go backwards paragraph by paragraph, but is impossible to do. It's great advice, but you can't do it. I mean, I can't do it. Maybe you can, but the second best thing I can say is print it out, read it aloud, and that's when you'll become aware of your homonym interchanges. You're going to realize where you're missing commas, where you're missing things. You have two thes, whatever. I know it's tedious. What I
like about that is that it puts you in the mind of a performer. Like this, the moment that you start reading something out loud, and I've done this for scripts that I've written down that I thought were a good idea at the time. Like when you just read your own words, you think of it as I'm reading my words, and you know what you meant and stuff. But when you switch to reading it out loud, you are giving a performance. You enter a different modality, and as a result, this is just the script. And the guy who wrote it, even though it happened to be you, is some dude in the past, and you, current person, giving a performance of this alone in your room or for a camera or on a voice recording, has a totally different agenda. And you're the one who gets annoyed when a sentence is clumsily written, and you're like, I don't know, how am I supposed to read this? I'm trying to deliver this, and this is clumsily written. I think that's a really great way to to access a different aspect of your brain and see it from a different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it also is very important to highlight that there is such a gigantic difference between developmental editing and line editing. You know, if you've ever come out of a movie and you're like, oh, wow, that movie could have been better if they would have done this and this. But wait, if you were going to do this and this, then that had to stay the same later in the story, or this had to be a different thing earlier in the story. That's developmental editing. Developmental editing is you are going to be among the few people in the embryonic process of this story to help shape where things go, right? And really what I used to do when I would read Andrew's work was just from my perspective say, okay, well, this is what, in a perfect world, if I could go to the author, which I was, and say, more of this, or I wasn't clear on this, or this is important, and I really like this. Is there any way that we can get to this quicker? Like those are those questions where line editing is really just like what Andrew said. The like super tedious with a fine tooth comb, like just doing the work to find any and every little mistake that you can.
So I would say, as Brian pointed out too, that I want to really reinforce that. I found even going from my desktop to an iPad and reading it to then outputting it into reading on a Kindle, you look at things differently. And part of what happens is when you change the line width from what you write into something else, that's one thing that changes. When you just have a different way to look at it, you will pick things up easier. I know I never try to edit in the same medium that I wrote it in. That's key. Don't try to edit in the same environment you wrote it because you didn't catch it when you wrote it. So you want to shape that up. Even changing the style of font can make it different. Your eyes will pick it up. And as you read it aloud, as Brian says, it's a different part of the brain is trying to make sense of this. So that's the best process. And, if you write an average length book, to read it aloud without interruptions would be about 8 hours. So if you say that let's double that to 16 hours, if you spread that across, a few hours a day, you can do 4 or 5 days. You can go through and do a really good edit of your book. So, and that's a good practice. It's certainly, I notice when I go back and I do that, like a thing that I really try to avoid in my writing is being repetitious with words. Not be like he said, this person said, that person said. There's nothing wrong with that. Like Isaac Asimov would use that a lot, but I think that can be kind of tedious. I think there are certain kinds of repetitions that I think that.
Do you think part of that comes from your affinity for audiobooks, like me? Because I noticed that in an audiobook, at some point the dialogue is clearly one person and another person back and forth, and oftentimes you get readers who will do different voices, or do you think that you just, even when you're reading it, you find it tedious?
I notice it when I read it, and I think that I think that it can create some sort of confusion. I think that I entertain like the idea that one of the things that makes us think or process that we have this, our brain at any given time is sort of doing this sort of quantum branching of sort of thing, entertaining several possibilities at once. And then once we have proof of one thing, everything else collapses and we kind of write over it and we forget how we entertain multiple things. And when you're reading, you're keeping track of a lot of different things. And if you see a word come up once and the word comes up again, it kind of triggers back, and I think it sort of interferes with the narrative flow, because your brain is sort of like, wait, did I just read? Oh no, I didn't read that. Okay, I'm cool. And it's hard to really quantify that. But I strive hard, and I've gotten books back from editors who've I've had this multiple times where they're like, oh, why don't you use this word instead? I'm like, because I already used that word. That word's there in that paragraph before, and I need a different word. And maybe this doesn't fit as best, but it reads better. How things read is an important thing. You can have the information
pretty important
there,
for a book.
Yeah, I just.
But I mean, I mean that more than just sort of like, is it readable? But the idea is, does it flow? And yeah. You get in this hung up like a bad poem. Like if you I don't write poetry, but if you write poetry and you have it a slightly off where the rhyming word comes through, you're like, okay, it's a little jarring.
I just keep adding the word excitedly to every line in the book. That way it's more exciting.
Well, there are words.
Because otherwise, if you don't say it, they won't know how excited people are.
Well, but the funny thing is, so I'm writing a middle grade book right now, and I'll have to do another pass too, because I know that some of the stuff I'm writing sounds like adult, and I'll have to go do another pass on that and try to get over that, because and try to get in, like, sometimes that's okay, because in middle grade, suddenlies and things like that, kids are more tuned to sort of, you tell them we're excited, like, yeah, I'm excited. And we're adults, like, why am I excited? And a kid, you have to have a balance of that.
What? This might be a branching point, but you had mentioned that you've been doing a lot of periscopes lately, and I tuned in for a bit of one of them. And in fact, I went to comment or give a heart or something, and it told me to log in, and I was like, I got something else to do.
Andy's not worth a heart.
But you were talking about writing for young adult fiction, and about how oftentimes publishers don't or think something is too high a concept for a young adult. And your advice, if I remembered it correctly, was like, the way you write for young adults is to write a good story and then just, make it told in such a way that it's appropriate for that age. Don't don't try to dumb anything down. It seemed to be your advice.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly have to think about in your audience, like there are going to be fewer subplots. There are going to be fewer things. Things have to be more obvious. Things have to be out there on the surface more. And I'm going through that there, but I still try to write. I want, I want it to be interesting enough for an adult to read it and not feel like they were talked down to. And I have a problem because some people said, "Oh, have you read this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I read that when I was 7, and I wouldn't have touched it when I was 10." And I liked the books that if you read it when you're 7, you'll like it when you're 10, you like it when you're 12. The Harry Potter books evolved.
The like Wrinkle in Time kind of stuff, where it's like you could go back and appreciate it on different levels.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a book like The Hobbit. That's a book that like 9-year-olds can read.
Or Watership Down. I remember Penny read Watership Down at age 8 and just got to the end. Like I read the last few pages with her. Just side by side, reading silently at the same time. And meanwhile, I'm just bawling at the last few pages. And then Penny's like, "Oh, that was good." And it's like, "Well, hey, did you recognize what happened at the end?" He's like, "Yeah, the bunny went to the place where all the bunnies are happy." And it's like, okay, that's accurate.
But I would say but even digging into Hobbit for a second. If I went to a publisher and said, I want to write a story that's based on Scandinavian and old German folklore that's going to pull upon these themes of these archetypes and stuff and kind of deal sort of the ideas of my own personal fear of mechanization, industrialization, because, I'm a affluent, English person who has no idea how the rest of the world works, whatever. They'd be like, "Oh, that's a great premise. You wanted kids? This is going to be for kids?" And it's a great. I mean, but it would be hard to get that book published. And I brought up that Harry Potter got turned down 40 times. 40 times. 40 people said no to the greatest children's literary and film franchise in history. They said, "No, I don't see much potential here."
I wonder how much of that was the curse of knowledge. Like everybody who was in a position to either thumbs up or thumbs down it had read a lot of fantasy before. And my big gripe with Harry Potter is that it feels like such entry level fantasy, because it is, but as a result, to somebody who has experienced Lord of the Rings or whatever, it's just like, yeah, no, whatever, a hippogriff, but to somebody who's never experienced all that idea, or the simple idea of a sorting hat, should be treated like it's the biggest deal in the world.
Yes, I think that was part of, because I describe the first Harry Potter book as the first 30 pages is Roald Dahl, and then it gets into Terry Pratchett for kids. And I don't mean that derisively. I think that I think it was Rowling was trying to find her voice, and it first feels like Roald Dahl, but then once it's this Pratchett, and that's why people who read a lot of Terry Pratchett, it felt familiar. But I'm like, yeah, but it's kids, and it's a friendlier version of that. The Terry Pratchett world, Discworld, is cool, but it's kind of scary, and it's kind of nonsensical to be nonsensical, whatever. And the Potter version of that was, as J.K. Rowling evolved that world, it got further away from just that pure whimsy, things are funny because they're funny, to rules. And we went from a book that the first book was sort of classic middle grade, where nothing bad happens to somebody while they're in the scene. Anybody who dies outside the chapter, to, the third, fourth book, where people are getting, cursed in the middle of a thing with wands and vaporizing and dying in front of you, which is kind of awesome.
Yeah, I mean that series just does such a great job of also protecting its villain and just kind of unraveling the Voldemort of it all, slowly, which is ultimately, I think, why, as you get to the end, you almost want to or want to be around Voldemort a little bit more than you do, just because all the previous books do such a great job of just letting that, that there's this creeping evil there, but kind of like Game of Thrones. It's that there's this persistent threat beyond the wall that is at some point going to be the reason why all of our heroes need to get together, and we're going to have loyalties tested. But it's in the Harry Potter world, it's just very slowly, very, oh, okay, well, now this person's here's a sympathizer. Oh, let's figure that out. Right. And now okay, well, now there's remnants of the old magic. And then, at the point that Voldemort kind of comes back to life, you're like, oh, my God, this is insane. This is the craziest stuff ever.
Ray Fiennes, sign me up. I'm a fan.
Totally.
Is great. So back to the like just earlier talking about like writing. It's trying to figure out what level you're at, and I've had back and forth with somebody trying to write something for another project that was middle grade, and I realized they wanted lower middle grade and actually elementary school, which is like, and there's a big difference. And I've been spending a lot of time reading these books and trying to understand what makes something successful. And part of the problem you have is that the biggest successes are the outliers. And as Brian articulated, the people who read Harry Potter didn't understand that maybe this combination, why average people would go nuts for it, because there was just an element, and that was with Star Wars too, is people said, we've seen this before. Star Wars borrowed a lot from Flash Gordon, a lot from Dune, but that thing we saw on screen and what happened there, just nothing ever felt like that. And that's the scary part, is you can have the most brilliant, wonderful thing in the world. The industry will probably not know that.
Yeah.
And the hard part is you're, on one hand, we live in a world now where, as an author who writes for grown-ups, it's very easy to get your stuff out there. But if you want to write to middle grade, it doesn't work the same way. Self-publishing, the number of self-published middle grade successes is probably non-zero, but effectively feels like zero, because that's a world that's filled with gatekeepers, librarians, teachers, and parents. They're the ones that select what books their kids are going to find about and read. And you have to go through very conventional means, publishers, et cetera, to do that. So that's kind of like, for me, my big goal, 2017, is to try to get into middle grade.
Right.
Dare to dream.
I think you will.
Yeah. If you guys ever have questions, talk to the audience there for us to answer on after things. We are happy to throw our suggestions out there and give you our input and give you some of our thought on that. We had a question for weird things, but it's actually, I think, a pretty good after things question. This was the first one. Could you guys dig into what you think about Alpha? Have you seen projectalpha.com?
Which, by the way, to the three people on this program, means a very different thing. When I first read Project Alpha, I'm sure all three of us thought about the late 1970s project that patron saint of skepticism, James Randi, put together with Banachek. I always forget the other guy's name. What was his name? Apparently you guys too. Okay, good. I don't feel bad. But basically they fooled scientists into making them think they had supernatural powers. And on the eve of publication, they revealed that no, these are magic tricks. These are how they work.
But that's not this Project Alpha.
No, that's correct.
So this Project Alpha, I don't know if you guys might be more familiar with it than I am.
I'm not. I just briefly scrolled through it. But if you go to projectalpha.com, this appears to be an alternative to financing creative endeavors. For example, we've talked about Patreon. We the whole conceit of After Things is that we pull back the kimono a little bit and show you what it's like to be an independent creator. And in this case, for us, Patreon is a great fit because it's something that the transparency of Patreon is attractive when people find out that weird things nets us, less than $500 an episode right now, or grosses less than $500 an episode. Oftentimes they're like, oh, but I really like that show. I want to support it. But if you're a bigger institution, for example, I've spoken to some podcasters that are fairly big, and I was singing the praises of Patreon, and they're like, I can't do that. People can't know how much money we're making. If they do, it will be a turnoff for them. And then he disclosed the amount of money they were making, and I said, you know what? You're right. You should probably just keep that on the quiet. Let's do it that way. And so for something, and in this case, we're looking at the Geek and Sundry Network and the Nerdist Network, and they're basically creating their own kind of Howl.fm style project where you become a recurring member and you get early access to stuff. You get to be there virtually. Did you have a chance to really look over this, Bryce?
No.
Okay.
But this sounds a lot like this reminds me a lot of Max Fun, but Max Fun doesn't have any sort of premium content, but they do donor subscriptions, and it's all their own rolled subscription service.
Well, so it says here it's $4.99 a month, and you get a 30-day free trial, I guess. Click on the thing that says "What is Alpha?" Let's actually read their pitch. hosted by Nerdist and Geek and Sundry Alpha, is one huge celebration that everyone's invited to as part of the blah, 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 blah. You can expect features such as guesting, which allows you to appear on screen to directly interact and communicate with your favorite hosts and celebrity guests, your favorites, exclusive contents, exclusive events. So it sounds to me like this is their version of diamondclub.tv, only you pay a monthly fee to be in the chat room and have your presence seen and felt directly live on the show, which I think they could do given the numbers that they're pulling.
Yeah, the question is that where the people who watch them want to watch them? And I think that you will certainly be able to monetize the portion of it. To be fair, in looking at it, it kind of, the thing that immediately jumps out to me is that, well, I bet you Lionsgate wants to make sure that they continue to get return on the investment for buying both those companies. On the other side, it's very curious. I mean, listen, there's you cannot swing a dead cat without hitting somebody trying to do some little mini content network now, and be they large like Netflix or small like CISO or another way that you can try to get money from a huge dialed in audience like Nerdist and Geek and Sundry both have. We'll see. I know that it's very, very, very exciting to look at the numbers that you get live streaming on Twitch or get on YouTube and say, man, it would be really, really rad to not cut anybody else in for that money, and be it ad revenue or subscription revenue in Twitch's case. So,
just to be clear, it's Legendary, not Lionsgate, but yeah.
Oh, sorry, Legendary. Yeah, sorry, yeah. My mistake.
I think that what the pro is $5 a month, not a lot to ask at all, and particularly, considering the paltry sum we ask for support of our show, but it's not a lot to ask. So it's not a really, really high point if you're into those shows and you like it. I think that's the key. The problem with networks can be that networks are a great way to say, if you like this, check out this. And that's one of the things that's worked out great for Diamond Club, is there's been a huge overlap. And that overlap is, Justin and I were talking about this the other day, if you following the kind of river that started out of like Tech TV, to my books, like in the connections from Tech TV to Leo Laporte to Twit to you guys to Brian, then to you guys, then to Weird Things and my books and stuff, and how that river kind of is a bad metaphor, but y'all understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure. I mean, these strange, it's a windy, twisty road, but there is a continuous narrative thread for most people to get to this moment.
Yeah, of how like, hey, I like this thing here and I found this thing there. And so there's that advantage. The difficulty thing can be is that you get into this problem where people like $5 and you look at these other shows like, man, I don't want this show. I don't want this show. I just want my show. I'm like, well, $5 is not much to ask at all. I think that I don't know how you can tell actually, like they're.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's a really good point, because if like our proposition is you like Weird Things, give us $5 a month and we'll always do Weird Things. You'll always get Weird Things and you'll get a little benefit. But if we're like $5, what a value. You get Weird Things and 72 other shows that you don't give a rat's ass about. Now all of a sudden you view it as a different thing. It's like, well, I mean, out of all these shows, I only like Weird Things. I mean, am I going to pay $5 for all this garbage that I don't care about and the one show I like? It sort of short circuits the value proposition.
Yeah, I think that, and that it does get into a problem too with the as you mentioned before, is like some things not wanting people to know how much money you're making because you're afraid your fans will not support you. I don't think I'd be very comfortable. I mean, then again, I don't tell everybody every figure on what I get for certain things, but when I'm going to crowdsource stuff or whatever like that, I like that disclosure, and I also think that should sort of put upon you the goal of returning value. And I'll give you a great example. I think that for some of the things like Scott does with Nerdtacular and all that, is that I'm not just paying a guy to do a show out of his house. I'm paying part of this thing that then gets put into, this con, which of course I have to go pay to go to. But you're like, it's not just that. And you feel bad when I'm like, wait, I could do this. I could sit on my couch and do that. Why is this idiot getting paid so much money? And you really want to be thinking hard about, how do I return value? How do I increase value on that? And, but $5 a month. I don't think that's a bad thing to do. But I do think that that's, it'll be interesting to see, because like I look at that content, I'm like, there's nothing there for me, and I can't evaluate that, but I can certainly say that, man, if I liked one of those shows, that's good. But is it easier to do the ask like we do? Like, if you just love this.
Well, and Geek and Sundry has a very, very successful Twitch channel, and I assume that part of this is giving super hardcore fans the opportunity to pay them another $5 a month. And I think that that's super cool. I think the question, though, is that at some point, are you, by moving your suggested location to watch the show, are you jeopardizing your relationship with your audience in some way? Because sometimes, like, understanding where people want to view your show the most can be a huge step forward. Brian, when you went from looking at Scam School as a podcast to a YouTube channel,
right,
it opened everything up, right?
Well, and also understand, and that's a case where we're changing the focus of where your presence is most felt. Because when we first launched Scam School, there was no, Twitter was in its infancy, and distribution, nobody was using YouTube. So we would distribute on RSS video podcast, and then we would congregate in the Revision 3 forums. And so I would respond to all the, there was a place where it's like, here's the latest episode, discuss. Well, I like this. Well, why didn't you do it this way? And I could be there to interact or whatever. And after several years, it became clear that, YouTube was a great collection of both the video and the comments in there. And so that was where I turned my focus. And instead, I would tweet out some stuff, and eventually those forums kind of dissolved. But now we also saw the reverse of that, in that, we had, when we were on Twit, a big built-in audience of people who liked the Twit Clubhouse. There was always 800 people in the chat room and all that stuff. And so when we made our departure and went independent, that was it. We're thrilled with the hundreds and thousands of people who have followed us over, but it is a fraction of the people that we had the opportunity to court. And as a result, for example, on now that Modern Rogue is building steam, it's fascinating to see how many of the comments are, oh man, that's the guy from Scam School. Whatever happened to Scam School? And the answer is, of course, nothing happened to it. You stopped watching and just decided that it didn't exist anymore. So in that regard, anytime you make a big move, especially when you have a strong position, if you mentioned they had a powerful Twitch channel, it does make sense to stay put and stay where the people are, but also this is their opportunity to get those email addresses, to make people commit the smallest commitment, to pivot from being somebody who watches in this one clubhouse to self-identifying, no, I am a member of this tribe, to where even if they only go a few months and then decide it's now worth $5, they've identified as a member of that tribe, and there's a way for them to reach out next time there's another big project.
I've been thinking about writing a book, like kind of like I did my How to Make Money on Mars, of like what your job will be when the robots take over, right? Yeah. So I had that came up on a Periscope I did the other day. I was like, what happens when the robots take over? And I referenced Matt Ridley's article about how 95% of people were, in agriculture, and we're not bemoaning the loss of that and the fact that we don't have to put our children into fields to plow. And you look at what's happening now as we're trying to figure out, like, all this comes down to is like, hey, we like this content. How do you make this content pay for itself? But also, is there that fatigue where people are like $5 here, $10 here, $20 here a month, and you start adding all of that up? And there's certain models that seem attractive initially, like Spotify and stuff, but when you really dig into the numbers of that, there's questions of scalability, like that cannot support the music industry. And the argument can be made, well, maybe it has to change. Maybe it had a wonderful period of time when you could get paid to be a full-time musician, sort of, not really, but sort of, and that's over, and that's where things go to. Or, it's like, well, as we shift from paying for one thing, then we have to sort of look at this other. And part of the problem you have is, Peter Thiel's book, 0 to 1. Highly, highly recommend. Did you guys read that book, by the way?
I have not, but now I'm loading up Audible.
He makes a very, very, very good point in this book, and other people have made this before. We've talked about this, and Brian, it's a point you brought up, is he makes a point like, you don't want to open up a restaurant. You don't want to open up a restaurant because in the restaurant industry, anybody can open a restaurant. It has infinite competition and you will not get successful with a restaurant. You want to have the category definer. You want to be the killer in one area, Google, et cetera, and all that. And we talk about this all the time when in entertainment.
Wait, I take it back. I did read it. I just went to go buy it, and it's like, it's in your library, jerk. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I did read it. I guess I need to read it again.
Yeah, I'm going to probably do the audiobook now. And so you get into this situation where, you look through and the problem you're dealing with is like, if you don't like our show, and it turns out most people don't care about our show, there are other things you can do with your time. And when you're in entertainment, there is you have to figure out how to make a thing so compelling. Like every now and then you get category defining kind of things. And I would say Serial was that for a while. It was like, yes, it was a form of entertainment, but it was this so different from everything else. It's not like when people are like, I want to do a show and talk about movies. Welcome to everybody else, Right. You need to have that thing that makes you so different. And the problem you have when you do anything that's geek related, every geek in the world wants to do that and sees them, and eventually could be potential competition. And that's going to be problematic, is figuring out like, how do you differentiate that? And the ones that have had the success have been the ones that have building out networks. Kevin Smith's done his network. Corolla, I think, is doing that. I think that you have, Nerdist, obviously, Geek and Sundry. They build these networks and sort of aggregate that, because then you have a larger platform to push out from.
Earwolf and Feral Audio, and there's lots.
So that's the thing to keep in mind, is like, how do you survive? And even then, I don't know. I'm just sort of throwing these things out there.
Let me also point out, though, like, as a testament of how difficult it is to get a crowd to move absent a unbeatable proposition. Am I remembering this correctly, Bryce? I believe Vessel had $150 million of backing, and it was based entirely on the idea of, let's make a better YouTube than YouTube. And so they built a superior interface. It was gorgeous. Mm-hmm. They captured all of the top YouTube clientele. They paid all of them to start saying, if you want to see the content even earlier, you can this is where the new Clubhouse is. It's awesome for all these reasons. They were paying these huge bounties, so there was a cash incentive for everyone to try to make it happen. It lasted just over a year before shuttering.
Over a year. I would say almost 18 months.
Yeah,
or so.
$150 million.
Now, this was also on the back of a guy who made Hulu and
Yeah.
And it got bought out. It didn't shut down. It got bought.
Right, but and folded into Verizon, right? Yeah.
Well, I think we called that too. It's just that it's the
not me publicly, because I was always a happy partner of Vessel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, Brian's official position has always been and always will be that Vessel's a great idea and will be perfect.
It was good. It was ahead of its time, is what it was.
Yeah, I think the
3 days ahead of its time.
the problem with Vessel, and even the problem with YouTube Red, besides sounding a lot like Red something tube, is that there is a ton of free content out there, and the moment I get friction, you're like, the friction is go here and still pay attention. You're like here's the thing, like PewDiePie has 50 million subscribers. All right, it's 50 million subscribers, and he's doing really well. He's making buck. But I don't think it was until last year that the number one star in all of YouTube, was making on parity with what maybe the third star on NCIS or Big Bang Theory made. And people go like, well, that's not like, but no, like this is a guy that has, this is a guy that has the biggest social media following you could possibly imagine. Yet he's doing what a second tier star on a major TV show makes. Not the number one tier, not this, not that. And so that's the problem, is because the moment PewDiePie is like, well, you need to pay for my service, and do this, and he's going to do great. But the moment he's not going to get into that, alone won't get him into super huge money range,
Yeah.
Because the moment there's that little bit of friction of like, well, now you have to go here to go do this, there will be people who follow him, but the drop off is huge, because it's like, well, there's another guy who's pretty funny. I'll watch this too. Yeah, maybe I'll get around to that. So that's the hard part, is the friction, the jump.
Yeah, but and that's also part and parcel. That's the upside downside of being a star in an emerging medium, right? The good news is that by virtue of being there early, being there first, and we're some of the beneficiaries of being early in the podcast market. You know, with both this program and the other shows that we do. Certainly, we're beneficiaries of being one of the first places people heard about Patreon. But the downside is, you know, it is a more dominant position in a very small market to begin with. And the example I always give is the reason all of the big players, the moment cable got deregulated and anyone could have a cable station, all the big broadcasters were like, why would we bother with cable? There's nobody there. And of course, if you weren't a big player, it's like, that's why you went with cable, is because nobody was there and it was easy and cheap and you could make a 24-hour news station and you could do things that had never been done before, which is why all the big names in cable are you know, not the same names that we have in broadcast.
True. And also, though, like, we've never had, like, you go back and you look at what did Magic TV specials do in the 80s, you know, the 70s. You know, Doug Henning special would get like 30 million views, right? And that will never happen again because there are just too many other outlets now. And so that's why it's harder for one person to sort of aggregate that kind of power or do whatever now, because there's just so many other choices. You know, if you're choosing between one of three, then you're going to divide up everything by three. But if you're a choice between 100 cable channels and a million things on YouTube, you know, that is over. But yeah, somebody says you guys are using all of our Patreon dollars because you were the first. It's true. That's the thing, is that, you know,
well, it's harder now. Like, let's say you like someone. It's not just like when we asked, hey, give us money. The question was, do I like them? Do I have the money? Yeah. But now if you've maxed out your patronage, and by the way, thank you to everyone who still keeps us on your patronage. And all of a sudden someone comes along that you also like. The question is no longer, do I like them? The question is, okay, I really like them, but do I like them enough that I will unsubscribe? I will stop donating. And if so, which of my babies do I cut off? And that's a challenging thing. And we hope we're not that baby.
Well, and that's, you know, if you're looking at how to monetize an audience, so much of what we've kind of learned with Patreon, at least for our projects, is that the support is more durable and comes freer when there's almost less promised, which I guess circles back to that whole idea of like, all right, if you're going to list 50 things and I only like one, is that better or worse of a proposition than just having the one say, hey, give us money for no reason? Like, just because you like us.
Right. I tried that one.
Hey, we did we? Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I was going to segue into talking more about you doing all your periscoping, but I think we pretty much covered all of that. So I got nothing.
It's fun. I love Periscope. It is. I've been enjoying it. I pop up there periodically now, do a lot, and it has been a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful way to connect with people who on Twitter who are sort of casually, I follow, they follow back and whatever, and they kind of get more into it. And I have no agenda for that right now, other than just shamelessly plugging the things I've been doing. But I've been really enjoying it. You know, it's different to sort of just hop in there, not with, hey, everybody, I'm going to do a show. I'll start with a question or whatever, but it's been extremely fun. A lot of fun. So.
Yeah, that's I think that's another testament to how sticky those environments are, because, you know, you were saying there are people who never even knew that you wrote books and so on, which is astonishing to me that they could follow your feed and not realize that.
Yeah, I need to step up my self-promotion, I guess.
but and also you say you have no agenda, but realize that every moment of interaction you have, every moment of value, every more of your personality that you're able to virtualize and share in the strange one-way friendship that the internet and broadcasting affords, you are building brand value. And no, it's not in a tangible this moment kind of way, but it will be felt down the road next time you saw the release. And again, I can testify for this because there's no universe in which the Monorogue launches with two unknowns, no matter how good it is like this, and it gets quite the same traction it's getting right now. I have to believe that this is a decade's worth of brand value and general goodwill that's finally, you know, being cashed in, so to speak.
Yeah, and I also I enjoy it. The thing is the thing. And that's the thing I was thinking about, like, is that like, oh, what do you do with this thing? I'm like, I don't know, just keep doing this fun thing while this medium is around and before it morphs into something else. That's the part of the thing I thought about is like, what's my goal? And I thought about the fact that like I consider myself extremely fortunate that, I can flip a switch and start having a conversation with a few dozen people, and just, hey, I could be in the middle of my house, come back, talk to nobody all day, and be like, let's go talk to people, and boom, I'm in front of an audience and having fun and people recommending books to me or talking about things. That's value. That's the kind of thing you think about. What's my goal one day? My goal one day is to be able to flip a switch and be able to have a conversation with 30 people,
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool.
Hey, what's the over under? Or what's your bet on the first time Trump periscopes? Like, that seems like at some point he's going to have too much to say that 140 characters won't cover it, and he's going to see that button and realize that he can instantly...
they're doing the videos. I don't know. I mean, it would make sense, I mean, I think that even beyond, obviously the president-elect has a very specific relationship with the Twitter platform, but, it wouldn't be shocking if Obama periscoped on his last day of office, right? Like, I think that we're kind of...
Can you imagine
follow me on my new Twitter channel, everybody.
Man, hey, picks. Do you guys want to do picks?
Yes.
I got a pick. I don't know if you guys watch a lot of YouTube, but there's been a lot of hand wringing and name calling about what YouTube's doing with their algorithm. There are big celebrities saying that they're screwing things up. Recently, or yesterday, I believe, Game Theory posted a video. The Game Theory channel, which is very, very even-handed. Keep in mind,
Game Theorists.
The Game Theorists.
I believe so. That's what this link that you
yes,
put in Slack says.
That is the one. The video is called... I'm waiting.
I'll look for it. Keep
there we go. What is Game Theory? Is YouTube killing PewDiePie and H3H3? In a world filled with everybody just making up what they think is happening and howling, rightfully terrified because, these are their livelihoods and they're afraid that that with a click of a mouse, all of a sudden YouTube can change all the rules.
What the hell?
This guy, yeah, the guy, Matt Pat, his job is to consult for brands and channels and to explain what the best practices are and why. And his latest Game Theory episode deals with hard numbers, both from his channel and his client's channel, and gives good justifications that will help you out tremendously.
Well, what is he? Are they?
No. He talks about how for a long time that over the last year, watch the video. Basically, over the last year, they made it clear that YouTube is valuing engagement time, watch time more than individual views, which is why you've seen videos get a little bit longer because if you watch all of a 3-minute video, you still only watch 3 minutes. Whereas if you watch half of a 40-minute Let's Play, that's 20 minutes of viewer engagement. And he talks about how YouTube is really trying to become like Netflix, basically, the kind of thing that you turn on and watch for long periods of times and wants to essentially replace television, which means it needs to reward more engaging, longer form content, which it's doing. But he says what has changed is the and he gives a word for it, but basically the ability to post a video one day and the next day new video comes out and people immediately come back. And he says that that's very difficult for even daily vloggers because creating that kind of content is taxing, as all three of us I'm sure are very aware. But he says that's part of the reason that you're seeing more and more news items and Jimmy Fallon every night or whatever, because these are entities that are already used to a daily grind of creating half hour to an hour of brand new content every single day, day in, day out. And they've got that kind of content that's able to pop up and immediately, day after day, people will go and watch, the latest Jimmy Fallon sketch or whatever.
I was thinking about this because I was obviously the whole PewDiePie thing kind of blew up over the last few days. But would you say that the algorithm turn that they seem to be complaining about that happened around the same time that your channel started to see growth, that maybe you are doing the kind of content that YouTube wants to reward?
Partly,
Brian.
Well, if so, that it's by design. I mean, I've talked about it before. Tube Filter did a really good breakdown of kind of best practices, and whereas the theory had been like, make a 3-second video of a cat farting, and then you'll get all the hits and all the money.
It's a great video, Brian.
Yeah, I know. But they've moved to total watch time, which is why Modern Rogue is a little bit longer, but that means we have to work harder to keep it engaging, for an entire 10 to 15 minutes instead of, the 5 minutes that most scam schools can get away with.
Coming up, what part of my anatomy do I put into Ryan's mouth? Stay tuned.
Yeah, who knows? Well, and there are people that use the curiosity, gap as a cheap way to make that work. But anyway, it's a fantastic article, short video that I think is very fair and even-handed.
Yeah. It's interesting to look at like Facebook went through with their whole we were counting video views differently, and we know that it really worked out to our advantage, and we're gonna fix this. And you're like, you're a $400 billion company. You're telling me that not a single person at Facebook did the numbers and knew that the way you're doing video counts was advantageous to you and misrepresented what you're providing to advertisers? Nobody in your entire company said, hey, we need to fix this. A little suspicious.
Pump and circ. It's same. All this has happened before, and it'll happen again. Whenever you're trying to sell advertising on top of content, there's always going to be content makers lying about how many people watch them.
Yeah, it's Facebook though. I'm saying that's the thing. It's
dirty. It's dirty.
And I think they have so much power. I think that's why people are afraid to say how dirty that was.
Yeah. Oh no.
So, what was the specific transgression?
So the way you were getting these reports of how your video views were working, if you put a video up there, whatever, is Facebook was counting I think I forgot the way that it worked. Is there?
Yeah, I heard it was 4 seconds without audio. If you lingered on it for more than 4 seconds, even before the audio or without audio, they called that a view. Is that right?
Yeah, they're so it was they're off by 20% of the full views versus this whatever. So there was a 20% difference or something the way the algorithm kind of thing worked, which it's listen, we all make mistakes. It just but it worked to their advantage, and it's if that did not work to their advantage, how quickly do you think that would have been fixed?
Yeah.
So listen, I don't know. I'm just saying it's when you're a $400 billion company, when you're that huge, and you have this thing going on for a year, and there was something else too about that, and it's not shocked, but it's kind of the lack of outrage surprised me. But then it's it's kind of the people who have the most to complain are kind of know that I've benefited and not benefited from the mysterious algorithm there. So.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, man, it is kind of a scary thing, seeing, you work so hard to get to a channel that reaches so many people, but then you see that, I understand these folks' terror, where it's they used to be able to reach all these people who are subscribers, and now just not so much.
Mm-hmm. So my pick is going to be, I think, for the interest of pop culture and understanding things, there's a little indie movie coming out, I think, sometime this week. I want you to guys check it out so we can talk about it next week. I'll let you figure out what it is.
Okay. Well, it's really just fan fiction, right? It takes place in an established universe.
Mm-hmm.
Man, those tweets coming out of the premiere, though, holy smokes, right?
I haven't seen. Andrew was kind of shocked when he asked me about the reaction. I was like, I haven't noticed any. I haven't looked.
Yeah. Listen. I wish I could live in your bubble.
No, it's pretty high praise so far. So hopefully everything turns out next week when it comes out.
I mean, we just want a good movie. But inside we're like, please be awesome, please be awesome, please. I just want a good movie. Please be awesome, please be awesome, please change my life and give me value.
Hey, did you, Justin or Andrew, see the Verge article singing the praises of movies with Mikey?
I did. Yeah. No, it was very, very, very well done. I think it got to the essence of why I like that series so much.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from the fact that Mikey's a friend, and obviously we're gonna shill for our friends, but it's great. I highly recommend everybody check it out. So my pick is, last night I was at a wedding, and somebody mentioned something during the rehearsal dinner, and I wanted to see how easy it was. And that was setting up a Snapchat geo filter. So if you are familiar with the Snapchat platform, if you take a picture or video, if you swipe to the left or to the right, there are these little overlays. So a lot of them are geographically generated. So you get like the city that you're in, that kind of stuff. You can set up your own, and it was really cheap and really easy to do. To have the filter going for 12 hours. I think it was 13 hours actually. It was only $15, and I wound up paying for artwork, and I didn't need to. They have their own little art, no Photoshop needed, filter generator that you can run right through their site. I thought it was super, a super easy process for sure. You draw out exactly how much space you want on their map, and then based on how big your area is how they wind up charging you. But I was shocked at how easy it was, and it made me king of the millennials at the wedding last night. So I was very excited.
Here's the thing that I like to play now, and I'm going to pull up this example. Do you all know who Emma Morano is?
I do not.
Emma Morano is the oldest living person. She's 117 years old.
Wow.
She was born in 1899. So Emma Morano, when Emma Morano was, 17, 18, it was 1916. The average age of a lot of people listening right now when she was that age was 100 years ago. Okay.
Wow.
I want you to explain to teenage Emma Morano, when we talk about hey, what happens when the robots take our jobs? We talk about new jobs. Tell teenage Emma Morano what the hell that thing is you just paid money for.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, it was hard to explain it to people my age. So I do not envy explaining it to her.
Forgive me. I drifted ever so slightly while you were doing that. I had something pop up, but then I read the thing and I still don't understand the tangible benefit to it. Is that you reach more people, or
basically you can just
to a 2016 Brian Brushwood?
I mean, I already have difficult. I'm getting better about understanding Snapchat.
It was a filter for the wedding so that people could take snaps and it would have the images on it already.
Got it.
So let's say,
got it. So Justin foots the bill, and everybody at that venue gets this thing to tag their stuff automatically.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
So let's say me and you are doing a live night attack show.
Right.
We pay for that. And now everybody who's there taking pictures and videos on Snapchat and sharing it, now we look like that much bigger of a deal because we have a filter.
Got it.
So that business model, we've got inside the Snapchat system, you're paying for a service when you take a photo inside this location on using your mobile device with a camera system connected to the internet. All of these things that are just so, when we're talking about what jobs do we do when the robots take over, that's going to be an economy even more complex than the one right now, where there is a service that does this. And you might come up with Snapchat could have a third-party service that could say, hey, we'll design specialty filters or things like this, kind of like wedding photography or whatever. We'll create a special design so everybody takes photos, it gets aggregated. You could create very crazy business models, not to say that that's what it will be, but you can imagine like that. Now, one of the things I was thinking about, if I said, oh, how about a tourist guide for virtual worlds? Somebody if I'm in virtual reality, tourist guide, you're like, oh, okay, maybe. Yeah, it's called Twitch.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Where it's I want you to take me on a tour. I don't want to actually have to get good at Overwatch. Just show me all the coolest things to do in Overwatch. Oh, that is really clever.
So that's kind of I was thinking about writing that book about the future. I might use an example virtual, tourist guide. Well, that sounds weird. Then you're no, it's called Twitch. You're oh.
Yeah.
That's real. And what's the lineage to that? Back in the 1980s was people publishing those little booklets how to win on Atari games, which going back even further, how to win at poker, how to do these things.
I bought a full paperback book. I think it was 130 pages long. It was nothing but page by page describing what moves to make on each frame of Dragon's Lair. It's like you're going to walk in, there's a potion that says drink me. You're going to go left towards it. Then the floor is going to collapse. You're going to do back, and then you're going to hit sword to hit the spider. Now you're on to the next one.
Dude, that buying that guide was smart because that saved you a lot of money because that game was effing hard.
Yeah,
That
dude.
game was impossible. Oh my god.
It was so cool. I kept putting quarters in. You know, I was like, yep, Don Bluth Studios, you did it. Gentlemen,
Did it,
we good?
Son of a
Oh,
bitch.
man, we're the best.
You realize the next time we do an After Things, we're all going to be touched. We're all going to be different
Yeah,
men.
assuming I can buy a ticket. I haven't bought a ticket.
Brian. Justin, you realize the next time you and I do this show.
Thursday night, baby. Thursday night
How awesome
at
would
the
it be
Alamo
if
Draft
Brian
House in
didn't
SF.
just see it, and we just got to gloat, you know, and just... That would not be cool at all.
I'll read the novelization and pretend like I saw the movie. Oh, yeah, you remember that one part? Wait, you're like, that wasn't in the movie. I was like, I'm sure it was in their inner dialogue. I'm sure they were remembering a time that happened.
Yeah, remember when Jen Urso was thinking this reminded her of... Yeah, I'm psychic in movies. I can read their minds now. Like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Ghost dog in Star Wars. All right. Gentlemen.
Yep.
Ben After.
Cool.
Justin Robert Young, do you have like 15 minutes that I can pick your brain with something?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Well, it's about Brian and what an asshole.
I have an unattended 9-year-old downstairs that I need to check
Best kind. All right, Justin, I'm going to call you right now. Bye. Thank you, everybody.
We'll see you guys tomorrow. Cord Killers is tomorrow.
on. Yeah.
BTW, subscribe it. That sounds that cool. Redesigned website. Look at it. Oh, that's so cool. All right, bye, guys.